Any kind of Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a rabid neo-Nazi. You shouldn't even let someone be the local dog catcher if they've ever exhibited any sort of positive feelings about the state of Israel.
There's some hyperbole there, but
that's putting it mildly.
It's so funny that you know for a fact that Sam Seder would say that Trump's whole thing where he's trying to make it so that you have to speak perfect English in order to be somebody who drives a truck. He would say that that is a racist dog whistle. But Hasan openly saying that you have any positive sentiment, regardless of what it even pertains to, it's just silly and it's all about Zionism. It's intentionally stupid.
I think it's so dangerous and so disingenuous. I mean, I don't want to get too passionate about this.
The guy who's sitting here and talking about how it's not a big deal that a lot of people didn't vote for Kamala, even though she would have been better for Palestine, is now going to pretend to get worked up.
One thing I kind of wish is that you guys both could have defined what Zionism is.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That would have actually been super tough. All right, let's see what we got with this Sam Seder, Ethan Klein conversation. I wonder what they're going to talk about.
All right, and who cares about Ice Poseidon? Sam is here. Let's talk to him.
All right. Give me a moment. I will set up.
No moments for you.
Welcome to the show, Mr. Sam
Seder.
Okay?
Oh my God, it's Sam Seder. What a nightmare!
Oh no!
All right.
Oh, Sam Seder, what a fucking nightmare!
How have you been, Sam, since we ruined Steven Crowder's life together? Nice to see you again.
I've been feeling very badly for him.
Yes.
Over the years.
Yeah, he's a tough guy, man. Such a great guy, abusing his wife and all. You know,
it's a tragic loss of a great career and so much potential.
Yes, it is. Hey, are we live now?
We are live on the
Wouldn't you know that? You silly little goose.
H3. Yes.
I want to just start by sort of apologizing in that I sent you a DM on Twitter 6 months ago or something. I was just going through to find out, and I just realized you're no longer on Twitter.
Yeah.
So that
okay.
He explains why I didn't hear back.
He may yeah, I didn't see it. I wish I would have, but honestly, I don't know what to do because like I want to get off Twitter, but also it's kind of a pain because Twitter is the way that like I would reach out and speak to most people.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I've been using it for clips, and then sometimes I doom scroll on it, especially if like my Wi-Fi is bad because you can kind of still get stuff because it's mostly just like text and pictures rather than videos. So I've been trying to like post, like watch it a little less and like only do like TikTok posts and stuff, you know, solid boundaries, fellers. So,
but I also don't want to be on a platform that's like owned and perpetuates basically like Nazi shit. So
that's fair.
Yeah, this was, yes, I understand that.
Yeah,
but I just wanted you to know I did reach out and it was on me not to realize that I just assumed you didn't want to respond, but
okay, well, that's nice to know that you reached out. I appreciate that. And the reason, I mean, obviously, people have been pushing for this conversation. I don't know if you know, like, the whole lore of it.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good conversation. I don't think Sam Seder knows, like, the specific lore of everything going on with Hasan and everything. I think that Sam is, like, an actual politics guy, whereas, like, Hasan is... He's a political drama guy, right? You know, I think that difference needs to be understood. There's a distinction between these two different things.
With
the background of it,
I mean, this is all I know is that Hasan reached out to me sometime.
Hasan reached out to his chosen Jew to talk to Ethan Klein to change his mind. Incredible.
I mean, I got in touch with you October 24th. And I said that I was meaning to reach out for a couple of weeks, so I assume it was sometime in early October. And my thought we were just going to do this off air, but my understanding is that you and he were getting into it, and you felt like because he wasn't Jewish, he didn't have a perspective on this.
Well, no. This October 7th happened. Hasan's chat was being very, they didn't care that Jews died, and they were calling Ethan like a fucking baby killer and shit. Like that is not an accurate interpretation at all.
And that's why he suggested that you speak to me. I don't speak for all
No.
Jews, just to be clear.
Right.
I speak for only for myself as a.
I wonder how like actually informed on this Sam is, because he might be more informed than we think, but he might also just be like, you know what, I'm going to kind of come into this pretending I'm not super informed on it, just to kind of be like, hey, listen, I'm going to be normal here, you know?
as a in any form.
Well,
whatsoever.
Sam,
So,
allow me to speak for all Jews, if I may, today.
please.
No, but actually, I mean, that's a total mischaracterization, which is kind of my problem with Hasan, which we can get into if you want. We don't even have to talk about Hasan. But
Oh, that's a good move, actually. That's a really good move for him to be like, yeah, we don't have to actually talk about Hasan. Obviously, that's kind of like the main thing here, but I mean, not talking about it, Hasan, not making it about Hasan makes Ethan look less petty. And Ethan's a very petty guy, which is why people like him. I mean, it's fun when he's petty. But that makes him look less petty, especially it's just the offer alone. It's like, yeah, we don't have to talk about it. Talk about something else if you want. That's kind of a fucking good move.
basically, what I told him was that I was citing polling data that shows that about 70 to 80% of diaspora Jews have some kind of positive feelings towards the state of Israel.
Just Israel in general, not saying that they love what the fucking government's doing, just the state of Israel.
And he was disagreeing with me. And I mean, this is available by polls, readily available by Pew Research just last month, showing that, and I have...
Well, Hasan just said that he thinks that like anybody that shows any positive, anythings towards Israel, like is a legitimate concern. Here's what him saying that.
I think like this will never happen, but in a totally just world, any kind of, regardless of your background, any kind of fucking Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a fucking rabid neo-Nazi. And you shouldn't even let someone be the fucking local dog catcher as Felix was posting, if they've ever exhibited any sort of like positive feelings about the state of Israel.
Right. So this is the problem, right?
I'm so serious about this.
This is the problem. Hasan has been talking about for so long about how, hey, I separate Zionists from like Jewish people and Israeli people. Zionists. He defines a Zionist who thinks that somebody that agrees with everything Israel's doing, even, you know, destroying Gaza. What a Zionist actually is just somebody who thinks that Israel has the right to exist, but they don't have the right to do what, you know, the Israeli government's doing, which is why a lot of people blame, even in Israel, they blame Netanyahu for October 7th. This is like, but he's feeling more comfortable now. He's feeling more powerful now. He's feeling confident enough to be like, hey, if you show any positive sentiment towards Israel, the most progressive state in the Middle East, by the way, they treat their people better. You could be upset about that, but that's just a fact. You're now like a Nazi. You're bad. The mask is slipping intentionally. He feels like he can ramp up more and more and more and more and more and more now. This is the problem with Hasan Parker. Okay.
I don't know if you're quite... If you agree with that or not, I can pull it up, but 72% of diaspora Jews have some type of at least positive feelings about the state of Israel. I was stating that fact to him, and he was saying that I was wrong. And I said, who are you to talk about this? I did not say that I only listen to Jewish people, which is a little bit of presumptuous and a little insane.
No, I don't think that's not what I took him to say. But yeah, I mean, Hasan is that's irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I haven't seen that poll. I've seen ones that have said that they have a connection. They feel a connection, either strong or somewhat.
Yeah.
Which is different than positive per se.
So
but regardless, I mean, I think if I don't know your upbringing at all, but I mean, certainly my upbringing, my Hebrew education was, I would say, 1/3 Holocaust, and I'm older, and so this was in the 70s, 1/3 into the 80s, 1/3 Holocaust, 1/3 Israel, 1/3 Hebrew, Hebrew and Jewish culture, and I certainly feel a strong connection to Israel, but I wouldn't call it positive these days.
Sure. I think what the poll attempts to is basically, if you ask Hasan or a lot of people on the left, I think an emotional attachment is the way to describe this. So it's like if you think
I
it's
certainly have an emotional attachment, and it's not, but it's not. I wouldn't describe it
Well,
as
here,
positive.
this isn't the one, is it, Dan? There's the one that shows 73% of diaspora Jews. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Regardless, basically, I want to flesh out my ideas, my thoughts, because I'm being characterized by Hasan and a lot of his cohorts as being, a Zionist, being pro-Israel, being a Israel apologist, being a genocide supporter, being a baby killer, being married to a baby killer, etc., right? My wife is Israeli. I don't know if you know that. So basically, I would like to just take the opportunity to explain my ideas, what I think about Israel, and you can tell me what you think, because apparently
It's good that he waited to have this conversation till a little later. Because like obviously when everything was going down, Ethan was worked up, and rightfully so. It's understandable why he would be worked up. But it probably is better that he's like a little bit more emotionally controlled and regulated. He could have this conversation a little better. The opinions were more fleshed out. The atmosphere is ready to listen to somebody that says like, hey, Israel doesn't have to be completely destroyed, right? Because like on TikTok, especially when things first started, if you said like, hey, I think Israel can exist, they just shouldn't do all this stuff, you were labeled as somebody who is like a violent, like, destructive force. Those pressures have largely died down, I think.
I will only listen to other Jewish people. So finally, I can speak to someone whose opinion matters to me. So thank you, as the official sanctioned Jewish man, Sam Seder, everybody. 100% Ashkenazi. You ever taken one of those?
I haven't, but I'm quite sure I have some Sephardic Jewish ancestry too. So I would mix.
That's good.
Vilnius and Hungary, I think.
Good for you.
Yep. I got a little bit of Ashkenazi in me. I'm actually part ethnic Jew, part German. So the second part of Ashkenazi, very heavy in my bloodline. It's incredible stuff. Very heavy in there.
I think that's always a good thing. My friend, I'm 99.3%. So,
whoa,
that's my.
All
that's,
right, well,
that's where my authority comes from.
I'll take your word for it.
So at any rate, let me start here by showing you a little context.
Oh, let me also just say, I got about an hour.
Okay, great.
Get
Well, I'll just get into it then.
Food.
Oh, here it is. Not that it matters, but okay, whatever. So let's start here. Let's start with the little icebreaker here. I know we're both fans of Tim Pool. Okay, let's just enjoy this image together. Tim Pool recently
I only got an hour. Let me just show you a picture of Tim Pool wearing the fucking beanie
at a wedding.
Bro, you want to know why Tim Pool wears a beanie? I guarantee you. One time, a girl he was dating said you look really handsome with a beanie on, and now he has not taken the thing off since. I'm fucking telling you right now.
And can you see? Can you see that?
Did he get married?
Well, I think he's attending a wedding.
Okay.
And he's very formally dressed, except he appears to be wearing a beanie.
I would. I'm aware of his beanie
Great use of time, Ethan.
attachment.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought this was a fine look for our good friend Tim Pool there. Very good.
Nice suit.
Yeah. So well, let me ask you this: what have you kind of like heard about me? Because I mean, I know that your colleagues have an opinion.
I got to be honest with you. I have not heard much.
You know he's heard some, but he's not going to say it. He's going to play a little ignorant here, which is probably the smart tactic on this one, to be honest with you.
I have, the only thing I really saw that came up in any of my mentions on Blue Sky, I'm also on Blue Sky, is just this issue about...
Is Blue Sky popular enough for me to actually fucking start posting clips on there?
Talking to me, and I had presumed that was it, but I don't, look, from my perspective, I'm not, and I know that there's been, you mentioned in the email that there's been a lot of grief that you have taken, and I know that other people have also taken grief on all sides of this. And, the personal aspects of this, and, I don't believe that people, I don't actively attempt to deplatform people. I don't think people should do that. I don't think people should be swatted or, you know,
Are you serious?
tried to be fired or whatever, or have CPS sicked on them or any.
See, he knows a little more than he's leading on. He knows a little more than he's leading on. The entire like harassment campaign against Ethan, it was so interesting because Ethan became this like unjustified target, or unjustifiably became this target of harassment, but it was justified to, you know, the Hasan audience and the Frogan audience. But they went so far that even like the average, like the layman was like, wait a minute, this is insane. He had CPS called on him for what? And that's how things turned around. Things didn't turn around because people finally realized Ethan was right. Like, that's not what happened. Things turned around because people were like, wait a minute, this is obsessive. Optically, he now looks right again. He is right, but it was never, that's not why people are on his side now. It's because he looks right optically. He looks like the victim because he is. Like, I mean, fucking people are calling CPS on him. It's insane.
Of that. I mean, I just don't think that's appropriate. I mean, I'm more interested in talking about my relationship to Zionism and my perspective on what Israel is doing and what is happening in Gaza. And
I totally agree. Let's just talk about the facts. Let me start by showing you this clip. So I've been actually talking about my feelings on the Israel-Gaza Palestinian dispute situation for a long time. I lived in Israel for 5 years as well when I was with my wife early on. Here's my position right after October 7th. And you can tell me if you have any... if you have any comments on any of my positions here, but this was from our episode a few days after October 7th. Yeah. Liars and bad faith weirdos. So here's what I'll say about Israel, okay? Listen. This isn't the first time I've said it.
Does this conversation get rough? It seems like it's going to be like a nice, chill conversation so far. What's going to get rough?
And I'll say it many more times. The cabinet is run by genocidal maniacs, okay? They're led by Netanyahu, who should resign in disgrace and go to prison for being a war criminal, okay? He's made a coalition of the most like radically conservative freaks that don't represent, by the way, the majority of Israelis. And they're hell-bent on genocide, frankly, overtly. They've committed tons of war crimes in Gaza, including the killing of children, obviously, because Gaza is one of the most densely populated places in the world. 50% of the residents are under 18, so when you bomb a building, the chances that you're killing children is pretty much 100%. Okay?
Okay.
It's fucking barbaric. It's unacceptable.
Damn, I can't believe Ethan's such a bad guy for saying all these horrible things about Palestine, apparently.
It's disgusting. I've seen videos, you know.
I'm obviously joking. This is very supportive of Palestine.
I saw videos of Palestinian dads holding his dead like 5-year-old daughter. I mean, I don't need to watch this part because it just gets a little too emotional. But I mean, so that was my take right after October 7th, and obviously that was coming off the end of me being like kind of. I'm an Israeli citizen. The morning of October 7th, me and my wife were up at 3 a.m. as families were calling into news stations from their safe houses, people being burned alive with their families being murdered while on the phone with news. So coming off of that emotional shock, right, was this was my reaction. Now, I don't know if there's something Zionist or pro-Israel I said there, but maybe I don't understand.
I mean, I might, I think.
I mean, there's no way he's going to disagree with anything that he said, I imagine.
Much of what you said was true. I think much of what you said was true.
Sure.
I'm not sure, frankly, if what we've seen Israel do in terms of Gaza is not broadly supported in Israel. Okay. I'm not seeing the body politic. I mean, I was doing a lot of interviews with Israeli reporters
I figured this would be the only thing that he would disagree with.
Earlier in 2023 about the protests against what Netanyahu was doing with the judiciary. And there was a question as to whether Israelis would see that this autocracy that Netanyahu was attempting to sort of impose on the country wasn't an extension of what was happening in places like the West Bank and in Gaza in some fashion, and more so the West Bank at that time. And so I think it's hard to make an argument. And look, I would make it's not a perfect analogy as to what's happening in this country, but when you talk about the Israeli population not having a problem with what's going on in Gaza, I don't see a lot of evidence of that. There's certainly, I would imagine, a percentage of Israelis, and I know some of them who think that Israel should stop its assault there, but I don't think I don't see a lot of evidence that a year and a half later, after you said those things, that this is not the character of the vast majority of Israeli society. I mean, I'm not necessarily convinced that they are as aware. I mean, I've talked to people who have reported in the West Bank, and they said they would go from the West Bank into Israel, and the lack of awareness of what was happening in the West Bank by Israelis was shocking to them. Well,
I mean, that would be a little bit of a different argument. If your argument is like, hey, the people aren't even fully educated on what is happening to Gaza, that might be true.
So, I can't say if the Israeli population had a full understanding of what was happening in Gaza, that they wouldn't change their mind. But I don't see a lot of evidence.
I mean, I'm reading through like a timeline of it, and I know it's like AI, but so far it seems to be, because it's like Grok, and I know that sometimes that can be a little shifty. But it seems like obviously when the war first started, there was when October 7th happened, there was a considerable amount of support, obviously. But as time goes on, there's been more calls for stopping it. For different reasons. Obviously, the Arabic people who are living, like Arabic people in like Israel proper, who are citizens, are going to be in much less support of the war. But the support of the conflict ending more and more has gone up as time goes on. I could see why people that were just attacked would be like, but they would be obviously more hardline for it. I mean, a bunch of their people just got fucking murdered after on October 7th. So
evidence of it.
So as you touched on, this was made basically before the war started, and I think that the unfortunate, really tragic outcome of the war is how much it's jaded and radicalized, I think, people in Israel. It's really, I think people in Israel feel like isolated. They feel like, the sentiment in Israel is basically that the world wants, the country to disappear, and obviously, like that's a much more nuanced conversation. But the feeling there has definitely radicalized a lot since the war started. It's gotten a lot worse.
And I think, I
could see why there would be more of a call to radicalization after the October 7th attacks.
That gets to it to some extent. I mean, you have this wholesale slaughter. I was looking up, we killed in Iraq, depending on what numbers you want to look at, but I think it's safe to say directly hundreds of thousands of people. But even like the number of children that we killed in Iraq, I think has been surpassed by what's happened in Gaza. And I think one of the things that I find shocking is that the sense, and look, I experienced this with family members. Where the sense that there's a victimization, for instance, let's say on college campus of Jewish students, and I think that to look at what's going on, the totality of what's going on, and to perceive the victims of what's happening here to be the Israeli citizenry or Jews in this country, I think it just blows my mind. I mean,
This is just stupid, right? Why? I'm sorry. Acknowledging that there was a drastic rise in anti-Semitism in the United States after October 7th isn't reshifting the narrative. We are not Palestinian people. We were not attacked. We don't have the justifier to hate Jewish people. Like, you shouldn't hate Jewish people, but I can understand why the Palestinians are much more frustrated. But to say that that's wrong is just, what? It's just a stupid thing to say. I don't think I misheard him. This guy, why is he being so stupid?
Blows my mind. I mean,
well, two people can care about two things at once. Why should people?
Oh, absolutely.
You could say, hey, what's happening to Palestine is terrible, but also that's not a justifier in the hate of American Jews. I don't understand.
Well, people,
absolutely.
People who are uninvolved in the war, if they're being victimized in a separate situation because of their Jewish identity, that's a problem, don't you think?
Oh, I do, but
you can care about two things. You can't be like, oh, these people are ridiculous for caring about anti-Semitism on college campuses because the war's happening. I mean, both we can care about two things.
100%.
And obviously, one is way worse. Right?
Well, you're saying 100%, but you just expressed different.
Right, one is way worse.
But that's the point. I mean, one is way worse. And what's happening in Gaza?
Who should tolerate being discriminated against based on their identity? You know what I mean? Like, of course.
Yeah, is that what this argument is? Like, hey, you should tolerate being discriminated against because the Israeli government is killing people in another part of the world, so it justifies hating Jews in America? I don't understand. What kind of argument is this? This is ridiculous.
Well,
who wouldn't react to that?
I don't think that people are. I don't think that people are being victimized. I mean, certainly, listen, anti-Semitism is real. It was real when I was a kid.
And it spiked up drastically after October 7th attacks. Yeah.
There was many times I had pennies thrown at me growing up. And
all right, must be a rich guy. Sorry, I'm not trying to say something, but if you're throwing money at somebody, you know what I mean. Pennies used to be worth a lot more back then. If you saved them, the copper's worth lots now.
Playing basketball. I mean, there was a lot of, I've experienced anti-Semitism,
Yeah.
but, I would put it in the context of you're a parent, I'm a parent. If my kid is going through something very difficult, it's obviously difficult for me, but it's more difficult for them. And it's a question of
okay, so I don't, I'm what?
Of prioritizing these things. You can have two thoughts in your head at the same time, but to center oneself or to perceive that one's victimization is sufficient to ignore the
These are two different arguments, though. The problem here is he's not wrong about saying that. He's not wrong by saying hey, we shouldn't center the conversation around anti-Semitism in the United States wholly. It's a factor and it shouldn't be tolerated, but the greater victims are Palestinian people. That's 100% true. But that's not what he's saying. What he's actually saying is we should just ignore the anti-Semitism because it's worse in Palestine. And I see this as him being afraid of backlash or something. You can hold both in your mind. Ethan has quite literally said in his nuke on Hasan that the Palestinian people are struggling more, but that doesn't give you cause or the right to just be anti-Semitic to just random Jewish people because of that. What the fuck is he talking about?
Stop you, because I don't think anyone. I don't know who's doing that.
Well, I mean, I just said you just presented as the Israeli population feels like they're isolated and this and that.
There's two.
He wasn't talking about the Israeli population. He's talking about what? He's talking about the rise of anti-Semitism in what?
Different separate conversation. There's the American Jewry who's I have nothing to do with that place, and then the Israelis, right? So when you're talking about
in terms of the way that you characterized the Israeli feeling, was that they feel isolated, et cetera, and I can understand that, but to not have the first thought of we are committing, like you say, genocidal acts. And if people want to call it genocide, I don't, obviously it's got to be, it's a legal term, but I think that it's, colloquially speaking, at the very least, it is a genocide. And
that's Sam saying that he doesn't know if it definitionally adheres to the standards of genocide, but he believes it is anyway, which is just interesting. Okay. I don't know if it is legally classified as such. It sounds pretty fucked up. So that's my take. It's just a lot of, hey, kids are dying. That's not good. Only times it's okay for kids to die is when I shoot my kids all over my wife's stomach, which never happens because I don't waste a load. You know what I mean? I'm an efficient man. Might be oversharing.
Not recognize that as the fundamental issue, the first issue.
Sure.
I think is blinkered.
I suppose. I
don't know how else to say it. I mean,
okay.
It's a little gobsmacking to me.
Well, so I do agree with you that obviously in Israel, people.
Sorry.
To me.
Well, so I do agree with you that obviously in Israel, people. I think the problem, and just to say on a higher level, I agree with you. Like obviously, the people in Israel compared to like what's on October 7th, they were victims. After everything that's happened, obviously, whatever they've suffered,
yeah, the response is disproportionate. Sure,
pales in comparison to the mass destruction and like wanton death of civilians in Gaza and what's happening in the West Bank too. Lots of awful stuff. That being said, I think the problem with Israel, just to try to explain what's happening there, because I do agree with you, is just like the media apparatus and the feeling that they have there. It's like there's not a lot of space emotionally and like even the information that they're consuming, I think, that would allow them to have that kind of like self-realization. And like you said, a lot of Israelis don't know what's happening necessarily.
It sounds like what he's saying is like, hey, there's an extraordinary amount of like media disinformation coming out of Israel. Is that what he's saying? That's not allowing these people to like have more empathy? Maybe.
I mean,
I wouldn't doubt, like, obviously the countries are going to run propaganda for themselves and whatever they want to do. I mean, at least it's worse now with Trump in office, and I think that's emboldened a lot of especially far-right leaders to act like fucking psychopaths. But
yeah, of course,
Haaretz, what was it in the fall? You had the publisher of Haaretz, speaking out about what was going on there. And the paper was essentially, a cutout, or there was an attempt by the government to basically shut them down on to some extent. I mean, so
what's your explanation why Israelis don't care? It's not that they're evil, right?
Well, I think, look,
this is just so weird. You have fucking Sam Seder kind of doing that a lot, kind of umming through this, not necessarily speaking super concisely. And then you have Ethan checking his hands for dirt. Like, how is happening? This is ridiculous.
There's, I'm sure that there is a mass, sort of like.
I understand it, like a little bit of like, stumbling through some words, but why is it so much?
Failure to deal with trauma. I think some of it is, frankly, is racism, and I think how can you explain? How can I explain how I just watched a clip of people at a Trump rally chanting USA, USA, to watching a video of people being, taken into that prison in El Salvador and having their heads I mean, I don't know how I can explain that.
Well, the problem with what Sam is doing right now is that, okay, this is actually like really strange. What's the problem with what Sam is doing right now is he's comparing literal cultist MAGA supporters to the entirety of the Israeli, like individuals in Israel. And I guarantee you that Israel has basically their own MAGA supporters over there for their government. I wouldn't doubt that at all. But to not separate the two, I think, is psychotic. Most people who voted Trump aren't fucking crazy. They just thought he was better, but not for the racist reasons. But the MAGA supporters are not a representation of the majority of, I would say, Republicans. I like to think that, at least. And so, like, now it seems like you're comparing our extreme fringe, far right MAGA cultists to the entirety of the Israeli people, and there's something very uncomfortable about that.
So I don't know how I could explain how the Israelis are able to the extent that they can see what's going on in Gaza, have that,
Didn't he just say that they can't though?
that reaction. But I know that it's wrong. And I think, some of it undoubtedly is a racism. Some of it is, maybe some type of mass failure to deal with.
I mean, I think part of it might be because Hamas is in control and their kind of whole thing is death to Jews. There might be a part of that might be a factor, just to be clear.
With trauma, I mean, I don't know all those things. I think, part of it, I think there's some of the makeup of, immigrants to Israel over the past several decades. I'm sure all of that enters into it. And I'm not in a position to sort of like be able to psychoanalyze it beyond this sort of, vague notions.
Sure.
But
I feel like this conversation is getting less and less productive. I would want to see what Sam thinks. Does Israel have the right to exist? I feel like a lot of times we get caught in the weeds of this. And it's like, okay, where are we arguing from? Are we arguing from a place where you think Israel is justified in its existence, or
perspective it beyond this sort of, vague notions.
Sure.
But
yeah, and I agree.
From my perspective, it's gobsmacking. And, to me,
what are you bringing up Willy Wonka at a time like this for, bro? What the hell?
has shown, and, I never identified myself as a Zionist as a kid or, through the years, and I never identified myself as an anti-Zionist. I don't think I think those wasn't really until someone heard me articulate my perspective on this that they referred to me as anti-Zionist, and I have, I don't really care that one way or another how I'm labeled. But
I'm not so sure of that. I think Sam might be a little bit afraid of the drama crowd. He should have stayed out of this. Unironically, I think that he should have stayed out of this.
To me, it shows a failure.
Specifically, I'm not of like the whole conversation, just out of talking to Ethan and this getting involved with the Hasan shit.
Of that system of government that Israel has. And it has failed both from a perspective of, what I think some people had as a notion of Zionism in the 19th century. It has been a failure in terms of keeping Jews safe, frankly. I'm
not understanding. Is he saying that the existence of an Israeli state has not been keeping Jews safe? Considering the historical consistent hatred of Jews across the world, I'd say that it kind of has been.
It seems to have been a massive failure. And so I can't...
What is he defining Zionism as? I'm very curious now.
...operate as someone who lives in Israel, but I can operate as someone who is an American in terms of like what we support, which is why I think we should end all aid. And as a Jew who sees my religion being...
That's just a stupid thing to think. Ending all aid for Gaza is politically unintelligent. We understand that, right? Like, what happens? There's no way he thinks this, unless he's a fucking coward that knows it'll never happen. Ending aid to Israel means that another country, like China or Russia, can swoop in and give Israel aid and support. And now we have less control over aspects of the world, which gives more control to literal dictatorship-led governments. But then there's less people to rein them in. Who do you think is probably more against human rights, the oppression of people, and more for human rights? Do you think it's the United States of America? Do you think it's Russia that assassinates political opponents and literally attacks other countries? Do you think it's China? Like, again, dictatorship? I don't understand. This is just like a politically unintelligent thing to say. There's no way that any like politically educated person would ever make that claim. That is just stupid. What?
Being used.
Like, we should definitely use our position to pressure them, but to say we should like fully pull out, it just seems to ignore the reality of the world.
As what I perceive as a fig leaf for what Israelis or, Zionists are doing. And so, I mean, that's where I'm coming from with this. That
I'm not coming, okay?
I don't know if
we're quickly losing the high ground at that point. No, we still have the high ground at that point, generally speaking. Our government isn't even as close to as bad as Russia or China at this point. It's rough, but don't get me wrong. I understand why you're saying that. But we're not even close to Russia and China right now. We haven't quite assassinated political opponents. We just have a massive idiot disinformation campaign going on with Donald Trump, and we'll see how everything plays out, but we're not nearly there yet.
there is a psychological state that can justify this. In fact, I don't think there is. And so,
it's just an attempt to understand, not justify. Because, I mean, it is what it is, right? Like, it is the way that it is. And so that's for a reason. And it's just trying to explain it. That's all. I agree with everything you're saying. But actually, one thing I want to pivot to and ask you about.
Do you think that we should cut all aid to Israel?
No, of course not. For all the reasons I explained.
I think that'd be justifiable, yeah.
Oh, well, I think you're an idiot too, then.
And
we're talking about like military aid and stuff. Yeah, for sure. Israel can make their own bombs and shit.
Every
if they need, like, they don't need American military. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
I think they do need it to do what they're doing, without a doubt. And
well, what I mean is they're not entitled to it. To say more accurately. Yeah. So yeah, I think military aid should be cut for sure until.
As a Jew, I mean, obviously you have a different connection to Israel than I do, as through your family and whatnot.
He didn't talk like this at all when he was talking on the fucking whatever it was, Jubilee.
And through having lived there, but as a Jew, I take such offense to what is being done ostensibly to protect me and my family and my ancestors and my progeny and all of it. I think it's I think the conflation of
killing me with this. I come on, man. Jesus Christ. Okay.
Zionism and Judaism is both not keeping Jews safe and is wrong at its core. And we can.
I want to know what he thinks Zionism is. Does he think that Zionism is like an outright like assault on everybody that's non-Jewish, or does he just think that Zionism is like, hey, we think we should be able to have a place for Jews, which I agree with right now because Jews are still being oppressed across the world. I understand why they would want, to a degree, an ethno-state right now, because people still hate Jewish people, even today. Like every country in the Middle East is an ethno-state, for different groups. I mean, considering 20% of the people who are citizens in Israel are not even Israeli, they're like Arabic. I would say that it is probably better and more free than the majority of the other Middle Eastern countries. They vote, they take part in government, et cetera, et cetera. So
see what it's even doing in the context of this country, the way that it's enabled Trump what does that mean? To attack universities and to attack law firms and whatever.
Okay.
And so I don't know.
Are you blaming Trump on Israel? Wait, are you JQing? Oh, what? He's putting way. It sounds like he's putting way too much responsibility on the Israeli government here. Way too much. I understand what he's saying is that some of the actions of the Israeli government have caused some people to feel justified in their hatred of Jews. Understandably so, but I feel like you're taking it a little too far. And the reason is because he doesn't think it's justified for Jewish people in America to feel upset by the fact that their anti-Semitism is rising.
And if you agree with that, great. If not, I'm happy to discuss it with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. And part of the reason why, like, this chasm started between me and, Hasan is very influential. So when he decides that somebody is an enemy of the movement for criticizing him, which is what I perceive happened, then it kind of becomes reality. For example, one of my criticisms of his is him not supporting Kamala Harris. Now, would she have stopped the war and been like a perfect dove? I don't know, but I know she would have been better than Trump. I know that for sure. Trump's posting like this this insane Riviera, Gaza, the Riviera with Trump hotels. I mean, that's and like he's sending the 20-pound bombs. He's telling Netanyahu, you have a blank check to do whatever you want. Now, like,
it just came out that Biden didn't, did nothing to. I mean, listen, I think.
Well, I'm talking about Kamala.
I suspect.
Well, they had similar policies.
That I suspect that she would not have had the same policies as Trump.
Well, which one do you think would be better?
But at the same time, I think that it was a massive failure, both on a real human level. Like it would have, I think, had she articulated anything even remotely close to what I would hope her difference would have been, I think it would have probably had implications in the election. But I think
holy fuck, dude! Listening to him talk, he's so indirect. This is actually so annoying.
Perhaps even more importantly, it would have maybe implicated the behavior of Israel. So, I mean, look,
what is he saying? He's talking around it. Do you think it sounds like what he's saying is that it was bad. It wasn't bad for Hasan to not support Kamala, who would have objectively been better than Trump. What?
I chose to support Harris because I perceived her as the lesser of two evils.
Yes,
but,
no shit. Why are you so afraid to say that?
Yeah, me too. And I think that's an important distinction to make at a time like this. Yeah.
I can certainly understand how some people were just so repulsed by what was happening that it made it almost impossible for them to vote for Harris. I think,
I think that's very ignorant and very ridiculous to insinuate that it is okay to not support Harris, who would have objectively been better for the Palestinian people, because you were kind of upset living in America. I think it's preposterous. I think it's a desperation for that very left-leaning audience. I don't know what are you talking about? How is that nothing that this guy has said so far? I watched this guy debate on Jubilee, and yet somehow he's lost all of his pragmatism when it comes to this topic of conversation. It's concerning and insane. What? Like, this guy is such a deeply nuanced person, except for when it comes to the conversation about Israel-Palestine. What happened? Why is his brain broken over this one topic? He can't even give an affirm yes, Kamala would have been better. He has to dance around everything. What the fuck?
I understand why they didn't. I totally understand the perspective. I'm so disillusioned with this administration, I can't support Kamala. But at the same time, a hugely influential political streamer like Hasan, who has a huge influence on people, I think, and who's someone who who's very vocal about being pro-Palestine. I feel like it's an abdication of responsibility to be I'm not voting for Kamala, or I'm not telling you who I voted for. I suspect he voted for Jill Stein personally, but either way, he hasn't said, and he wouldn't endorse her. Now, if you're just a random protester or whatever, and you're I'm so disgusted, I don't want to vote, that's fine.
Well, yeah, but if you're somebody that claims that you want Palestinian people to be free and happier, then you would vote for Kamala, even if she wasn't perfect.
But if you're a high-level political streamer, and basically you have the capacity to weigh the lesser of two evils and what that means, I feel like it's an abdication of responsibility to not make that call.
I mean, I certainly have been critical of people who,
oh my God.
Generally,
this conversation is going to be a wash. It's going to be him tiptoeing around answers. It's going to be cowardice, 100%.
Don't vote for the lesser of two evils, but I think and certainly in the run up to the 2016 election, I certainly that was my perspective. But again, what the Biden administration was doing was so horrific that her inability to signal that there would be any change, I think sometimes you have to take this at face value. And I think there would be certainly, definitely other things. You would not be assaulting the government like Trump is. But I think probably this is the first election in as long as I've been doing this, and I think it's been 5 elections now. I mean, I'm old. That I couldn't really condemn someone from taking that position.
Okay. So I Sam's a coward. This is so boring. His general take here is that he knows Kamala would have been better, but you know what? He doesn't blame anybody for not supporting her, even if they care deeply about the Palestinian conflict, because it's okay. Cool beans, man. We gotcha.
Based upon what we were seeing. I mean,
it's not just some random person. I do, and I'll tell you why. Kamala Harris wanted a ceasefire. She stated that. Trump said, finish them. I mean, let's be honest. Like, for someone like Hasan,
said, I want a ceasefire.
I'm not voting for Biden. I'm not talking about Biden.
No, I understand, but we found out that Biden, in fact, did nothing to bring that about. Okay. So,
well, you can talk about Biden. I'm talking about Kamala Harris. What she said.
I mean,
well, she's the vice president. I mean, at the end of the day, she doesn't really do that much, right?
No. But I'm talking about the candidate. Biden, as a president, said he wanted a ceasefire. She, as a candidate, said, I want a ceasefire.
Well, do you not? But even if you're like, I don't know how much I trust them. One's like, I want a ceasefire, and the other one is like, finish them.
Well, listen, I think it was certainly obvious to me that Trump was going to be worse. But I think, like, if you're trying to get the candidate to show some indication of this, I can understand that. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I would disagree with it. But
yeah, and I get your point too. Like, ultimately, I understand why people wouldn't want to support them because of what they've seen, and like that, it feels like it feels like
it also shows a tremendous amount of just like electoral malfeasance on her part. I mean, they made an active choice. Mm-hmm. And I think, you could have put that Palestinian lawmaker from Georgia on stage. They made an active choice to signal to whomever they were signaling that they weren't going to do anything. Now, I happen to believe that she would have been better on this than Trump, but they were making an active choice to do that. I mean, it was really electoral malfeasance on her part, in my opinion. But I don't know what the point of litigating this is.
The point of litigating this is that Hasan could have urged his audience to vote for the better candidate that would have been better for Palestine, but he didn't. He is irresponsible. The person who's constantly claiming that he is somebody who is pro-Palestinian, absolutely should have openly and actively supported the candidate that would have been better for Palestine, and he did not do that. He didn't do that. It's possible that with all the positive coverage he's getting about how fucking influential he is to fight against MAGA, you'd think that you would agree that, like, it's possible that if he actually did urge his young supporters to vote correctly, then we could have seen a drastic change. We could have seen somebody who is better for Palestine, somebody who might have made like the correct changes. That's the point of it. That it's irresponsible. That it shows that Hasan doesn't actually want to end the conflict. That he actually maybe enjoys it happening because he gets a huge viewer boost from talking about it, which is certainly something that happened. He was struggling before October 7th. And so like somebody who might be a little more conspiratorial might be like, well, maybe he actually doesn't want an end to this conflict because it's one of the only topics that he really is able to prop himself up on right now. And he's been continuing it for a while. So I don't know, man. Like, I guess we just exist in magical fantasy worlds, but okay, great stuff.
Per se, but
well, we're talking about
like he's not even saying, hey, yeah, I think that he should have advocated for that. But you know what? Like, I don't think that that's a huge deal or something. He's not even acknowledging that he should have advocated for it. What?
Kind of my criticisms of Hasan and how this. I don't. Well, let me show you this.
I don't care.
Yeah,
about,
I know.
Honestly, I'm like
Let me show you this. This is more.
I honestly. Like,
yeah, you don't care. I know.
I don't care. I don't.
And why should you? I don't blame you. We talked about anti-Semitism, and you think that I don't want to put words in your mouth, right? But you seem to have conveyed that, compared to the destruction and everything happening, the genocide, the loss of life in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, that obviously that's way more important. So let me show you an example of something.
Well, yeah, it is. But I wouldn't have framed it like that. Ethan's going to make himself look bad by saying that. What he should have said is, like, you obviously think that's more important, which it is, but you don't seem to care about anti-Semitism of people who have nothing to do with that conflict.
Thing, and again, I know you don't care about the drama.
think
To me,
like-
this isn't drama. This is one of the biggest, most influential streamers spreading something that I think is really dangerous. And you can agree or disagree, but it's a short clip, but I'll show it to you, and you tell me what you think.
This will never happen, but in a totally just world,
Oh, he's showing this clip.
any kind of, regardless of your background, any kind of fucking Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a fucking rabid neo-Nazi. And you shouldn't even let someone be the fucking local dog catcher as Felix was posting, if they've ever exhibited any sort of like positive feelings about the state of Israel. I'm so serious about this.
Yeah, so that's like problematic. You can no longer say that you separate, Israeli Jews and Zionists anymore. You think that like anybody who expresses any sort of positive sentiment. What if you live in Israel and you think that the positive sentiment is like you like the way the government runs outside of this foreign conflict? I don't know. It just sounds like what you're saying is like fuck all Israeli Jews. I don't know, man. But okay.
Now, by the way, he didn't misspeak. He doubled down on it yesterday. He said, no, I agree. That's what I think. Now, just to recap, he says,
Israel has the right to exist. They just don't have the right to do anything that they want. That's the issue. If you don't think that they have the right to exist, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're obviously, you're just like fucking crazy. I don't know what else to tell you. They're fucking, their own country that's been established a long time ago. They were given that land. The entire conflict happened. The reason that they needed that land was because they were being genocided.
anyone that's had positive feelings at any point about the state of Israel is a neo-Nazi that's not fit to be a dog walker. Now, to me, that seems like extremely dangerous, dehumanizing language about what could arguably be 70% of the Jewish diaspora, and certainly probably people you know in your family.
I'll tell you, there's some hyperbole there, but
that's putting it mildly.
I mean, he says Zionism, and I'll tell you what I think is really...
He says Zionism first, and then he separates and he removes that Zionism. Don't hide behind that. He's hiding behind it. He's allowing the dog whistle to happen.
Sorry, I got to correct you. He says Zionism, and then he says, if you had positive feelings about the state of Israel at any point in your life.
I got to tell you, if you look at what's happening right now,
okay,
and you have positive feelings about Israel,
he said at any point in your life, Sam. Just to be clear about what he said.
Would I have said at any point in his life, someone's life? But I just think this is such a petty, the idea that we're going to police. Hold on, let me respond.
Go ahead.
Okay, I got it. So Hasan says something deeply anti-Semitic, says something there. He basically doesn't think that Israel has the right to exist in general, right, at all. And it's all just kind of like petty, silly nonsense. This is the guy, by the way, that the New York Times is writing articles about, being the guy who's going to pull people from MAGA, is an extremist who doesn't think that Israel has the right to exist. That's what's happening here. Okay, the country gained its autonomy because they were genocided. They were given that land. It did displace people, and there should be reparations for that. But they have the right to exist. The entire world seems to hate Jewish people, so it makes sense that they exist. There clearly needs to be some kind of like a protective state for these people because everybody fucking seems to hate them. And here goes Sam Seder just justifying actually fucking insane rhetoric. This is fucking unhinged. This is absolutely unhinged. Okay, but it's just
you
petty.
want me to respond to this?
No,
I don't. Like I say, I don't care about this. But if you're going to force me to respond to it,
you don't care about the dog whistling of Jews being all bad, all Jews being bad. You don't care about that? That's fucking insane.
What Israel is doing right now is so far beyond the idea that someone says any time in your life or not or whatnot. He's talking about Zionism. Okay, and frankly, I think it's
okay.
Very difficult for me to
It's so funny that for a fact that Sam Seder would say that like Trump's whole fucking thing where he's trying to make it so that you have to speak like perfect English in order to be somebody who drives a truck. He would say that is a racist like anti-Hispanic dog whistle. But Hasan openly saying anybody who thinks Israel there's any level of what they're doing is, you have any positive sentiment, regardless of what it even pertains to, is just silly, and it's all about Zionism. It's fucking intentionally stupid. He's trying to be stupid. He's trying to be stupid and actually remove all intelligence and nuance from this conversation, because he's lazy and because he's afraid his audience is going to turn on him. This guy's pathetic. Fuck this guy, man. Jesus
Understand
Christ,
how someone could have positive feelings at this time. Now, you want to say in the past and what? Okay.
Yeah.
Like I say, I will grant you at any time in
do you
your
think that like Israel is only? Do you think that people in Israel only like would have a positive sentiment or any sentiment based on like what's going on in the war? They probably are. There's other things going on in the country I don't know about. I don't know what its policies are or anything else. Oh my god.
Your life, that is a too broad a step. But wait, let me finish.
Yeah.
But see, you go in and you're making this about anti-Semitism by doing this hopscotch about,
because he's being anti-Semitic. Of course you're going to think about anti-Semitism. He's being anti-Semitic. What are you talking about? What? Hopscotch.
A poll that people had positive feelings that Jewish people do, and then therefore he is anti-Semitic. And honestly, that
Hasan just said anybody who thinks Israel has a right to exist is a fucking Nazi. I don't know what else to tell you. You're a fucking idiot.
that type of conflation, I think, is so dangerous and so disingenuous. I mean, this is, I don't want to get too passionate about this, but I will tell you something.
Okay. Force your passion, please, for the love of Christ. I want to hear your fake passion here. I really need to see it. Please, for the love of God. The guy who was just sitting here saying that the guy who's literally sitting here and talking about how it's not a big deal that a lot of people didn't vote for Kamala, even though she would have been better for Palestine, is now going to pretend to get worked up in this rabid defense of Hasan, saying that anybody who thinks that Israel has the right to exist is a fucking Nazi. This guy is a coward loser. Get out of here. This guy's a coward. He's a coward. This is all fake. This is all him being afraid. He is he doesn't have an independent opinion on this topic. He's very clearly engaging in massive cognitive dissonance. This is fucking pathetic.
I have had a guy who went to my bar mitzvah, my sister's bar mitzvah,
Whoa.
my kid's bar mitzvah, sat at Passover with me 3 or 4 times, call my father and ask him if I'm anti-Semitic.
Okay.
Now, this is just one that is just an example, an illustration of conflating what he's clearly talking about Zionism.
I don't think he's anti-Semitic. My headphones keep fucking up. I don't think he's anti-Semitic. I think that he's a coward. That's pretty much it.
Of conflating what he's clearly talking about Zionism. Was it hyperbole to say any time in life, whatever? The fact of the matter is this conflation is dangerous for Jews.
Oh my God.
It is.
Ethan's actually dangerous for Jews. Ethan's the one that's dangerous for Jews, guys. That's what it is.
A fig leaf and a way of weaponizing anti-Semitism that has enabled Donald Trump to do the shit he's doing, that has enabled the slaughter of thousands upon thousands.
He's literally dog whistling that Israel. What are you doing? He's talking about he's dog whistling that like Israel is the justifier for Trump's bad policies right now. He's doing the fucking JQ. Holy shit. Oh my God. This is fucking psychotic, dude. This guy's brain broken. Holy fuck.
Thousands of children and women and men, for that matter. It is not keeping Israelis safe. Okay. And this type of conflation, Ethan, is what I find far more irresponsible, frankly.
Yeah, it's the guy who's never been to Israel, right? He knows. Like, I feel like that's got to be some kind of a factor.
Then the idea that he said positive any time. I mean, look, you do a show
Sam,
4 hours a day. He does a show 5 or, as far as I could tell, 15 hours a day. And to focus in on that one tiny clause.
This is not
one tiny clog. Holy fuck. I'm so sorry. Sam knows better. He knows that was intentionally a viral moment. Sam knows that was a moment that Hasan wanted to be viral for. He knows how social media works. He's not that stupid. He's pretending to be stupid right now. I think. He knows how social media works. He knows that Hasan was trying to have a viral, clippable moment. He knows all these things. Just to be clear. And he's like, well, it's just one moment out of like a whole day. No, it's not. He knows better. He knows much better.
tiny clip, Sam.
Well,
that you don't
but
know.
wait a
This is a
second.
totality of behavior.
But you
and
wanted
by
to
the
bring
way,
this
it's
up.
easy,
I don't
and I
care
appreciate
about
that you
anything.
can hand wave it away and say that it doesn't.
No, I'm not hand waving it away.
Well, you kind of are.
I'm saying this
You're saying it doesn't.
conflation.
You're saying
this
actually
conflation-
I'm wrong
saying-
for caring
I'm
about
saying-
it.
No, yes. In fact, I'm saying this
Yeah.
conflation is incredibly dangerous. It is disingenuous.
I think it's dangerous
right now,
to
there is,
ignore what's being described as dehumanizing, violent language for American Jews that have nothing to do with the war.
That is a complete mischaracterization of
It's
that.
not.
He's
not fit to be a dog walker.
He never says the word
He
Jews.
says a neo.
Of course not. This is what we call a dog whistle. Sam, it's what we call a dog whistle. We forgot what dog whistling was, guys.
Listen, how many members of Kufi have positive?
You need to ask him, does he think that Israel has the right to exist? Because the answer is no, he doesn't. He does not.
Of feelings towards Israel.
Let me say,
Wait. How many millions of members of Kufi, the Christian organization, have positive feelings for Jews? It is clearly not a function of their Judaism. It is not a function of their Judaism, and so it is not.
But it describes
specifically
most Jews.
No.
Yes, it does,
Sam. It describes most Christian evangelicals too.
It may do them too, but it also describes 73% of
that
Jews.
That is not anti-Semitism. That is about
I don't know.
belief.
What do you call it when somebody's discriminating against the vast majority of a racial or religious group, Sam?
I'm sorry. You want to look at evangelical Jews?
I don't care about evangelical people.
Okay, but I'm talking about the way you're constructing this.
I think
he just said that anybody that has any positive sentiment towards Israel existing is a fucking Nazi. Dude, this guy's a fucking he's such a baby. Holy fuck. And this whole he's pretending to care about this. I don't believe he actually cares. He doesn't care at all. He's getting like performatively worked up. He's doing what Hasan was doing in his clip. He's like just trying to basically reduce for attention. It's all performative like workup. That's all it is.
So you can say the same thing about Christian evangelicals too. It is not anti-Semitism. It is not.
Okay.
It just isn't.
Saying anybody who thinks Israel has a right to exist, it's not is a Nazi. That's not anti-Semitism, guys.
Taking one example in isolation, which is what we've done here.
Well, you're the one who gave it to me.
Yeah, well,
I don't even want to talk about
fundamentally,
it,
I disagree
but I'm
with you.
using your example, and in that instance, that is not anti-Semitism.
Well, I disagree.
Conflation. Okay, well, that's our disagreement.
Yeah.
But I think that conflation is incredibly dangerous.
Well, I disagree as well.
For Jews,
I think
it's dangerous for this society.
I think, frankly, I think it's dangerous to.
It's pro-Israel. Any pro-Israeli sentiment is dangerous for our society, guys. You heard it. You heard it from Cedar.
What I perceive as hand waving what is happening here. I know you said you aren't doing
I'm
that.
not hand waving.
Oh, yeah. You're doing the opposite. You're endorsing
decades of thought about this.
Incredible.
So right, sure. But the point is, you're saying that this is not dangerous. How dare you care about this? I think it's dangerous to.
I'm not saying that at all.
I personally,
well, no, he is saying that the entire time. Did he not just sit here and say that we shouldn't even care about anti-Semitism in the United States of America over this conflict? That's exactly what he said before. What are you talking? We shouldn't care about it because somehow that's just Israeli Jews shifting the narrative to justify blah 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 blah. He's just kind of speaking.
I mean, Jewish people have a collective memory of trauma, Sam, and it starts a certain way. And it starts with dehumanizing language, like saying you're not fit to walk a dog. I mean, what are we doing here? It's irresponsible language.
He's talking about people. Yes, he is.
Language.
He's not talking about Jews.
He's talking about 73% of Jewish people.
Yeah, we can go on a walk tonight, babe. Yeah.
You said that.
No, that's a poll that's readily available.
No, you made that connection. He did not. Because we have millions upon millions of members of Kufi. We have millions upon millions in this country of evangelicals who also believe the same thing.
Does your dad have?
You cannot say it's anti-Semitism.
Could you describe
You cannot say it's anti-Semitism if you're also including millions upon millions, far more Christians than Jews.
Would you say that your father, who you mentioned, said something to you, that he's ever in his life had positive feelings about the state of Israel?
I've had positive feelings of Israel.
Well, does your dad have any positive feelings about it now?
I would assume so.
Not in terms of.
You would assume so. So you think that he's a Nazi?
Like, I support them, but
I've had
I think
positive feelings. I went to Israel on.
Okay, good. Then you're a neo-Nazi, not fit to walk a dog. How do you feel about that?
No, that's you saying that.
That's literally what he said. I'll play it again.
No.
I think like this will never happen, but in a totally just world, any kind of, regardless of your background, any kind of fucking Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a fucking rabid neo-Nazi. And you shouldn't even let someone be the fucking local dog catcher as Felix was posting, if they've ever exhibited any sort of like positive feelings about the state of Israel. I'm so serious about this.
He's calling anybody who has a positive state of Israel somebody who's a Nazi who doesn't even fit to walk dogs. Just to be clear, okay. By the way, dog walking, respectable career. So also a little classist on that one, but we'll. That's insane. Israel exists because they were genocided, and then they were given land because they were just genocided during World War II. That's why it exists. Is everything that they're doing correct? No. I mean, I think the Palestinian people deserve reparations for being displaced and for being, fucking disproportionately attacked in response to October 7th. But again, that's not what we're doing here. That's not what's happening. We're not acknowledging any of that past. That is Hasan basically saying he doesn't think Israel has the right to exist. And if you think there's any positive thing about Israel, then you are a fucking Nazi. Okay, so he's telling Jewish people in Israel that have generational trauma, that have fucking parents and grandparents specifically, that were genocided in World War II. He's telling us that those people are Nazis. People who literally were genocided by Nazis, the survivors of Nazi genocide, they're Nazis if they have any pro-Israel sentiment. That's what he's saying, just to be clear.
Another thing he's doing, by the way, and Hasan
listen,
he plays around with the term Zionist, right?
You can say that's a wrong thing to say, but he's not talking about Jews. He's
talking about all Israeli Jews.
Talking about people who have exhibited these positive feelings, and that includes millions upon millions of Christians.
Okay.
More Christians.
Okay, well,
so his argument is that because he's also saying it about Christians, that it makes it okay. Okay. So basically Sam is an idiot, and because he's also including Christians who think positively of Israel, then that means that he couldn't possibly be anti-Semitic. Gotcha. Okay, so Sam Seder is intellectually challenged on one topic. Nuance disappears on one topic. I understand. Makes sense.
Listen, I don't think they're neo-Nazis, not fit to walk dogs, either. I think it's insane language.
Listen, you don't want to tell me that you have never engaged in hyperbole. You and I both are in this business, and we do that.
Yeah, you're right. I just think that,
Listen, you can say it's an inappropriate thing to say. It's an unfair thing.
It's an inappropriate thing to say. It is a pattern of Hasan saying things like radical shit about Israel like that, and Jewish people in general. We're talking about the fucking, like, the people in his chat will mock fucking the death of Israeli babies. What are we talking about here?
I just think,
with no moderation, by the way.
Arabs that support Israel aren't fit to walk a dog.
It is not anti-Semitism.
Okay, well, we're at an impasse on this one.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, but anyway, another thing he does is he says Zionist tendencies, and he's someone that plays around with Zionism. He calls me a Zionist, and again, I know we're arguing here about semantics of what Hasan said, but I don't think that you could accurately characterize me as that, as it's used colloquially. You don't know, right? But he's saying Zionist tendencies.
You don't know, right? That's funny.
What does that mean? What's a Zionist tendency?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You're going to talk to him on Friday. You can ask him what a Zionist tendency is. I suppose, I would guess, and, I've looked at polls too, where, people have various different understandings of what Zionism is. But I think it is my guess, and I don't know what he was thinking specifically, but the notion of an ethno-state that engages and it allows whatever in the name of Zionism allows for this mass slaughter, I think is horrific.
Sure. It's bad that they're killing people in Gaza. I agree. But like Ethan, he's saying that Ethan is a Zionist, despite the fact that Ethan is somebody who criticizes the Israeli government and says it's warmongering. So how is that a Zionist person? Unless you think that anybody who thinks Israel has a right to exist is a Zionist. And then you're just saying that Israel shouldn't exist at that point. Sorry, I got lost. I think this is where we're at.
But I think it is my guess, and I don't know what he was thinking specifically, but the notion of an ethno-state that engages and allows whatever in the name of Zionism allows for this mass slaughter, I think is horrific.
Okay.
Sure, me too.
Yeah, so he calls the person who thinks that a Zionist. So clearly, okay.
Okay.
Zionist seems to just be any Jewish person.
I mean, then I think we the three of us agree on that regard.
Yeah, I think we're so. Another thing is like to take it even further. I mean, Hasan pretty much like openly
Well, let's
supports
not talk
Hamas.
about Hasan. Let's talk about this.
Sure. I mean, what do you want to ask me?
Well, I mean, if you want to ask me about, I mean,
Well, let me. I have
any. I'm not here to explore.
Yeah.
you
I
know,
have a list of things
feelings
that.
but if you want to talk about Hamas, I mean,
Yeah.
I think look.
Well, how do you feel about Hamas?
I mean, I feel that Hamas, people can perceive it as a liberation organization.
I suppose.
We call them terrorists in this country. We call the
What
ANC
do you think about
terrorists.
them, Sam?
Listen,
They're a terrorist organization that was bred from, the oppression of the Israeli government onto Gaza. Yeah, so sure, but they're still a terrorist organization that is incredibly regressive, and they're still bad and wrong. So
I think there are parts, I would imagine, of Hamas that have done good for the people in Gaza, and I think
is that like when they hide behind them and let them die and don't let them evacuate when Israel says, "Hey, we're going to bomb this area"? Is that the part that did like really good? That's incredible.
they have done bad things. But I
Crazy.
sort of feel, I guess, ultimately probably like
Maybe a little bit of good, maybe a little bit of shit, right? Like that meme.
Barak when he said that were I Palestinian and I was living in Gaza, that it would be likely that I would join Hamas. I mean,
Sure.
that's what Ehud Barak said on multiple occasions. And I think that is very, that is an understanding of human nature.
Sure.
That
When
you're
you
not
are the
affording
subject-
Israelis, by the way, just to point out
Yeah, true. If you were born in Israel, wouldn't you have the same thing about Israel? If you're going to say that, like, if you were born Palestinian or you were born like in Gaza, you would join Hamas. Wouldn't that be like, okay, if you were born in Israel, wouldn't you support the Israeli government? Like, isn't that something that you would want to afford back and forth, or no?
consistency there.
How so?
Well, you're like, I refuse to understand human nature and their reaction. It's just evil, and I don't know how to explain it.
I didn't use the word evil.
You insinuated it.
Right. I'm inferring because I asked you if you think they're evil, and you didn't really answer that.
Listen,
You
I
avoided.
don't know what Gazans felt on October 8th, but toward Hamas. But I can tell you that we have there is a long history of terrorist organizations or so-called terrorist organizations like the ANC or the IRA, even the PLO,
Now, Sam,
that ultimately become political organizations.
I think the
And
comparison to
when you-
Hamas
when-
to what happened in South Africa is insanely disingenuous, and I personally hate when people do that.
I mean, Mandela didn't think so.
Well, Mandela did think so. He explicitly stated that he avoided committing violence on the citizenry because it would make reunification impossible. That's something he said.
I think you could say that tactically speaking. Listen,
in the
tactically speaking,
by the way, Sam, in
if
the
you wanna
total.
I have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to that, but did Ethan just fucking own this guy on that on the fucking talking point?
Totality of their campaign, I think under 200 civilians died. And the people who did kill civilians were almost all held accountable for what they did. That's a difference, Sam.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that
A significant difference.
Well, it is a significant difference. I mean, I imagine many of those people who committed atrocities on October 7th are dead now. And so
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, he's saying that they've all been punished, and now it's like time to stop.
Well, that's accountability.
Being
But
killed, okay.
but
I mean being held accountable by the party that they're presumably doing the violence on behalf. Like,
you're saying the entire ANC was held accountable?
No, I was saying Nelson Mandela's party, if someone killed a civilian, they would hold them accountable. They would charge them. They would disavow their actions.
The ANC did.
Yes.
Well, the IRA was bombing places in England and throughout Ireland. I mean, we have even the Irgun or the Stern Gang when they killed, over 100 villagers in 1948. I mean, the history is full of examples of organizations that commit terrorist acts. Now, I will tell you,
people look at South Africa.
I do not condone the killing of civilians, which is why obviously I'm upset about what Israel is doing.
Sure.
Cool.
The part that I don't.
The problem is that we're beyond this. We're beyond like, hey, some of the things that Israel does, specifically when it comes to the oppression in Gaza, is bad. We're beyond this now. This conversation isn't easy anymore for Sam. Sam is used to just everybody being like, yeah, Israel is super bad or everything. He's not used to somebody being like, hey, you know that there's like regular people that live there, like Jewish people who live there. He's not used to like that. So right now it is Sam Seder talking to somebody who's from Israel, who acknowledges that like Israel, has the whole right to exist factor there. He's like fucking struggling to cope with this because it's not the easy like, yeah, Israel bad conversation anymore. That's what he's struggling with at this point.
Like about people say I feel like people sweep for Hamas by saying like, what do you expect, right? But the truth is that people use South Africa as an example, but what South Africa shows is that you don't need to commit a violent war against civilians to liberate yourself.
Well, I mean, listen, we had for a year, we had the Great March of Return, where Sinwar himself was involved in that. There was Palestinians marching on a.
Dude, I really cannot handle how often he fucking slurs through his words. It's driving me fucking nuts. It's actually insane. What happened? He can't speak. It's not just every once in a while. It's constant. He can't stop fucking. What the fuck changed? What happened that made him unable to speak like a normal human being? Like, what is going on?
A regular basis over the course of the year. I don't know how many it was, 50 or whatever, that were innocent people who went there, and snipers are shooting down unarmed civilians. And so, time and time again, and over the course of the 20 years that I've been professionally, covering this, my attitude towards Israel's willingness to have peace has changed, and my understanding of it has changed. And I can only imagine how more intense that feeling is to be living in a place that is, functionally like, the Warsaw Ghetto, insofar as like you don't have access to resources, you have 50% unemployment.
I feel like the constant comparison to this, I don't know, it feels a little fucking anti-Semitic, but okay.
The apartheid that is taking place in terms of the West Bank. I mean,
I agree with those characterizations, by the way, Sam. Just to say.
But I can't imagine that my response wouldn't be to pick up a weapon.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
It's not really working out.
Well, none of it's working out, is it?
I mean, not much at all. Not really much at all.
What is called the greatest attack on Israelis in 75 years. The notion of Zionism and the way that Israel
what is that? Israel being Zionism? What
is organized as a society is not protecting Jews.
Well,
it's not protecting Israelis. It's not protecting Jews worldwide. It is. There may have been a time where Zionism had and there were certainly proponents of Zionism in the early 20th century, in the late, perhaps late 19th century, where there was a notion of a multi-ethnic democracy that fell by the wayside. Folks like Hannah Arendt and Einstein, left the Zionist Congress, and what it has evolved into is, I think, a nightmare for everyone involved. And so, I don't know how I would react in that type of immiseration, frankly.
Well, can I ask you?
But again,
what
Ehud Barak said that he would pick up a weapon were he one of them, and
That's fine.
He's
you
far
know,
closer to the conflict than I am.
I'm not saying I don't understand why people pick up weapons, right? So let me ask you this: what do you think about October 7th attack?
What do I think about it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was horrific.
Cool.
And this was like a military action by Hamas to what end?
I mean, I suspect. I mean, I don't know what the strategy was. I mean, they attacked 2 military bases. I don't know if they were aware of that the dance.
The Nova rave.
This is actually just fucking so embarrassing for dude. He can't speak coherently. He's unlearned the ability to talk.
Yeah, I don't know if they knew that rave was happening. I suspect it was to derail the Abraham Accords, which were going to leave the Palestinians out of the equation, where an authoritarian
You leave out that they
state.
attacked Kibbutzim, by the way.
No, yes, of course they did. But I'm saying that they. I don't know what the strategy was on their part.
So what do you think? Like, would you expect the response of Israel would be to that?
I had no doubt on that day that Israel was going to respond.
Go insane.
I mean,
yeah, right. It was going to be horrific. We all knew.
Yes, but I think I think the lack of proportionality was just beyond. Frankly, and I was aware that this was going to be a horror show, but I don't think I had the level of awareness of what they would do to go in and literally level it, destroy what is it, 90% of the structures in Palestine, bomb hospitals, that they would use.
Well, Hamas did know that because that's why they attacked.
Food as a weapon.
I'm more interested in the justification
I think Hamas
for what they're doing.
Probably took hostages with the idea that they would be able to negotiate.
I understand why they took hostages. I don't understand why they took children and elderly.
I believe that they probably. I mean, this is all conjecture on my part. That they would be able to trade them as a way to inhibit Israel.
I wonder if he's going to ask him about the rapes.
Doing what they're doing, and I don't know if they could have even imagined that. I'm not going to. I'm not going to endorse Hamas's, strategy here.
Well, I'm just trying to flesh it out here because this is my.
The problem is that Sam will not give any opinion that is like even close to charitable for like anything Israeli. It's actually concerning. He's got no intelligence or nuance on this topic right now.
What I'm getting to is Hamas, I think they knew that this was the reaction that would happen.
Okay.
I think they knew that this was the reaction that would happen.
Maybe not.
I can't imagine that they.
Well, just to be clear, just to be fair, I think that they might have known that this would have been the reaction. I think that we're bordering on potentially downplaying the Israeli government's response a little bit. Should be a little bit careful. They knew that there was going to be a reaction. I don't know if they knew that there was going to be like a complete destruction. The only reason I say that is because like if you say that like, oh, they knew this was going to be the reaction, what you're kind of saying is like, oh, Hamas is responsible for the disproportionate response that Israel had. Obviously, I don't think that that's a responsible thing to say by itself. I think that it needs to be a little more nuanced than that.
Assume that there would be this level of destruction.
I mean, that's why they hate Israel. I don't think they underestimate how violent the IDF can be. You know what I mean? That's why they attacked.
I certainly underestimated that they would go this far. Use
I didn't think they'd go this far, but
bomb hospitals and shoot EMTs and have rules of engagement like this. I mean. And I think Hamas is certainly up to criticism for their strategy here.
I think that's an understatement.
Well, I mean, if that's the
well, I mean,
that's what
they're
you're
a terrorist
arguing. I think
organization
they probably
that intentionally
presume-
antagonized like the IDF to come mass slaughter their civilians.
I think that
See that's a tough take. That's tough. That takes away too much responsibility from Israel. That pushes the idea again that like it is Hamas's fault for Israel having a disproportionate response. It's you can't. He's getting a little too far on that take there. Okay.
if they overestimated whether Israel cared about the hostages, without a doubt. I mean, there's I don't know that there would be anybody who would make a case that this is what was their plan have Israel respond in this way. That's absurd.
Well, and the same is true of like, I guess Israelis feel the same way. Like it was totally unprecedented. You know what happened. So maybe they didn't think that their mission would be as successful as it was. On the other hand,
I have no doubt that they did not think that they would that they would have been able to overrun that. I mean, I think we were told that the technology of Israel's fence, et cetera, was perfect and something we should emulate in this country. I mean, Trump was all talking about that. So I have no doubt that Hamas overestimated
overestimated the IDF. Yeah, I got you.
What they would be able to, what kind of destruction they would wreak, and they underestimated the violence that Israel would perpetrate on Gaza. I don't know that anyone could have imagined that Israel would have engaged in this level of destruction and immiseration and bombing churches and bombing hospitals and blowing up universities and destroying the infrastructure. I mean, it's almost beyond belief.
So one thing that when I was talking to Hasan, and I'm just going to talk about his point. This is about him personally. When I asked him, because this is obviously the $1 million question, right?
Keep in mind, Hasan also downplayed he was also downplaying the fact that there was protests, there was anti-Hamas protests. Like he very clearly is more interested in defending Hamas than criticizing Israel, in my opinion.
By the way, just there's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza.
What does that mean?
There's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza?
I don't know what does it mean?
Okay.
I just think that's interesting.
I don't understand. Ethan's starting to lose this conversation, at least in my fucking opinion. I don't know. What does that matter? What?
It's pretty fucked up, don't you think?
Are you saying that like there's only private ones? I don't understand. Did I miss the question? I'm very confused.
Bomb shelter. By the way, just there's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza.
I don't understand what that means.
Thing would be standing, and I'm not sure it's fucked up.
Think?
I'm very confused with the point.
Do I think it's fucked up?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand the point. Like,
I mean,
yeah, me too.
do you think anything would be standing anymore?
Well, bomb shelters are underground. I mean, they would definitely be a lot safer.
I've seen what happened to tunnels under hospitals.
Your statement is, there was. So you say there were tunnels under hospitals.
Israel built the ones under the first one that they went into. They built it when they were occupying Gaza.
There was the first one, or all of them? What is it?
Are you right? That's true of that one. But I mean, they have a vast tunnel network, obviously, as everybody knows. But I don't care. Network, obviously, as everybody knows. But I don't care. I don't want to get into the weeds on this. The $1 million question is like, what can we do? Now it's.
I don't understand what that was. Like, was he trying to get him on a gotcha on that? I don't really get what the point of that was.
It's obviously insanely
as
difficult
Americans,
to say.
I think we can stop aid immediately. I mean, obviously, it's not going to happen under Trump.
I'm in favor of that, by the way.
I'm not.
Okay.
I mean, like, we should try to figure out a way to rail them in. But like in general, like I don't want to. I really would rather it be America that'll actually try to stop this conflict than some other fucking country that like China or Russia who won't give a fuck about what's going on.
I mean, good.
I mean, I think
we should call for all aid to be ceased, and I think we should stop protecting them in the
what
UN.
should have Israel done on October 8th? I guess like what would have been an appropriate response for their government?
I mean,
without saying not this.
Okay.
What should they have done on October 8th? I mean, I think that there is they're hitting strategic sites to attempt to take out leadership. They should.
Well, the problem with that is that they're hiding in hospital infrastructure and like different civilian infrastructure, so it makes it a little difficult.
But let's talk. Like
the leadership was underground.
Yeah, to look at that, that moment in history, like maybe it was.
I disagree because they had to do something.
Maybe in that moment, they had to go in and bomb or whatever they do. I think that any action that they would have taken at that point, frankly, was a function of literally decades of oppressing people and attempting to bring this to an eventuality.
Right.
I mean, this was.
I think he's saying that Israel had no justifier of a response.
And so, what should they have done?
Ages ago.
Just say nothing if you don't think they should have done anything.
Well, I mean,
you're avoiding. Yeah.
Okay, I think what they should have done is begun empowering Palestinians in the West Bank.
So you're saying after they got. After Hamas attacked Israel, they should have been like, shit, you know what? We got to start helping people in the West Bank. Do you think that's actually logical? What?
They should have done
this is my favorite answer, Sam. You're saying that this is what Hasan told me. They should disband their government and lift the borders in response to the worst terrorist attack that's ever happened.
I think honestly, when you see that your policies have failed, but I don't think
1,200 people are fucking murdered. What should you do? I think you should just probably give the murderers what they want, the people what they want. Like give Hamas exactly what they want. Oh, okay, that's fucking super logical.
You actually don't believe that that's a real thing, though. I'm interested in having like a real conversation. You can't like live in a fairy tale land where, in response to the worst military or terrorist attack of all time, Israel, who's already, as you state, like genocidal and racist and all these terrible things, is going to lift their borders and disband their government.
Well, wait a second. You're asking me what they should have done, and that's different.
No, in a realistic way, not in a fairy
tale,
tale, Sam.
Well, listen, there is no realistic thing. Their agenda has been. It has been quite clear. Their agenda has been. Since Ariel Sharon walked on the Temple Mount and tried to scuttle peace talks, the agenda since the assassination of Rabin by arch-Zionists in Israel, the agenda has been to bring about this moment. There is no doubt about it. The annihilation of the Palestinian people has been an agenda in Israel for far too long. So
then why is 20% of their population inside of Israel proper Palestinian? Like it doesn't work. Saying that doesn't work. 20% of the Israeli population is Palestinian people that live in there. They vote, they take part in government, they do all this shit. How the fuck? It's just like, it doesn't work. You can't just say that when 20% of their population is Palestinian. That's not talking about the West Bank. That's not talking about Gaza. You're just like, what are you talking about? To sit here and say that they just wanted to eradicate Palestinians when 20% of their population is Palestinian is just fucking delusional. It's just fucking delusional. It's stupid and it's delusional. Okay.
So from the perspective, it's anything I say is fantastical relative to what they would actually do.
Gotcha.
Anything.
There's nothing they could have done that because of the situation, anything they would have done would have been.
There was no plan that on this day they were going to do this. But if you go back 10 or 15 years ago and look into Bibi Netanyahu's brain, the idea that this is ultimately going to happen was definitely the agenda.
What, in terms of like attacking Gaza or inciting an attack?
I would imagine both, frankly. But to find a way to eliminate the Palestinians, this has been the agenda of at one time, what I think was a smaller segment of the Israeli, body politic, and I think has increasingly become an even larger a portion of the Israeli politic.
Okay.
So, I mean, anything I say in terms of should is fantastical.
Basically, what he's saying is that anything other than the mass genocide of Palestinian people is some kind of it would be considered some kind of a crazy option, because that's all Israel wants to do is kill all Palestinians, even the 20% of them that are them. That are part of the population. Sam is unironically pushing a conspiracy theory, like an actual anti-Israel, anti-Jewish conspiracy theory right now. Just to be clear, like he is pushing an unhinged conspiracy theory, 1,000% with this. It's pathetic.
Anything.
So yeah, okay. I mean, so this is like I understand where you're coming from, right? Like
there was an opportunity for a ceasefire that was called.
Okay, I mean,
Sorry,
so this
like fucking audio issues. So.
is like I understand where you're coming from, right? Like
there was an opportunity for a ceasefire that was called in November, in December. They could have held a ceasefire at any point, and the amount of killing would have been far less. They could have done that. They could have ended it after a week.
I mean, Hamas could have ended the war anytime too.
How could have Hamas ended the
By
war?
by releasing the hostages?
No, listen. Israel has said
That's a good point. I suppose that's true.
time and time again that the release of the hostages is not going to end their assault on Gaza. They have said this over
I don't believe
and
that's
over and over.
I haven't seen those statements. I've seen the opposite. I believe that
you really haven't seen those statements?
No, I haven't. I'll review them. I mean, it depends when it depends when they were made too, right? Like, is it what's it in response to?
At any time. At any time they could have done that.
Well, what has Hamas done to?
Hopefully that's the last of the audio issues.
It depends when they were made too, right? Like, is it what's it in response to?
At any time. At any time they could have done that.
Well, what has Hamas done to end the war?
Hamas offered
what have
the
they done to end the war?
Early dawn to say Hamas offered all the hostages in agreement in response to Israel not coming into Gaza.
Are you talking about right after October 7th? That's so stupid. What a stupid thing to say. You're saying right after October 7th happened, Hamas was like, okay, we'll give the hostages back if you don't do anything. Is he serious?
I mean, there's just to defend Israel's actions.
That didn't happen
either.
It's being
inevitable. Like, when do you think they should have ended it?
No, dude, wait, hold on a second. Bro, this is what I'm talking about. Sam Seder is Sam Seder's a fucking Weasley little fuck. He's saying right when the attack happened, right when the October 7th terror attack happened, Hamas did say, hey, we'll give you your prisoners back if you don't. We'll exchange prisoners. Don't attack us. And that's impractical. Do you really expect fucking Israel to be like, oh, okay, yeah, no problem. You just killed like 1,200 of our people and raped them. Let me just give you your hostages back. You give us ours and we won't even counterattack. That's stupid and unrealistic. What a fucking fool.
When do you think they should have ended it?
So who have ended what?
You've asked me the question, what should have Israel done? You tell me what they should have done. Do you think what they've done is right?
Well, I've clearly stated no, Sam.
Okay, so tell me what they should have done.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, hindsight is a beautiful thing. But in my opinion, like you said, I think some more specific strikes, I think more moving slowly, because as you kind of pointed out but didn't really acknowledge.
When do you think they should have ended?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the leadership is obviously underground. So it's going to be a long mission of trying to get them. It's going to be a difficult mission, but I think militarily they probably have some obligation to their citizenry, at the very least, to like take out but we're ignoring the fact that missiles are being shot into Israel nonstop. And I know you're going to say, Iron Dome stops most of them, which is true. But at the same time, I mean, a country needs to respond to that. They can't just allow missiles to be shot in.
Tell me the non-fantastical version of what they should have done. Should it have been 2 weeks, 3 weeks? How many Hamas leaders, how many members of Hamas should they have killed before they leave? Because we know that Blinken said on his way out.
I mean, ideally all members of Hamas, right? The problem is that was impractical, and setting the destination as all Hamas members taken out is going to it's going to end up being problematic because it's impossible, I would say, generally speaking. And that means that like you can make a solid argument that like, oh, Netanyahu just wanted to continue the conflict until he, you know, killed them all, which is impractical, meaning that he would never want to have ended the conflict. That would be the problem with that.
That virtually every Hamas member of Hamas that they've killed has probably been replaced by someone who's lost a family member or an entire family or whatnot. So you tell me, Ethan, if you're the one with the sensical perspective on this, and mine is fantastical, what should they have done that would have been appropriate in your mind?
Yeah. So besides like special operations and stuff, I think it would have been a good idea to, I think there's a space where they could like try to find peace partners in Gaza before destroying the whole thing. Like obviously they approached it completely wrong, right? But
what do you mean, like elect a different government? Is that what you mean by a peace partner? I'm not sure that would have been particularly practical. Do you think they would have went for it, or?
There are ways, I think, that could have happened that are realistic, like trying to forge some kind of peace partner, some kind of alliance, some kind of international
All those
coalition.
people were marching. They were marching. They were marching in the Great March of Return, week after week after week.
Sam, was there
after
Hamas
week
activity at the Great March?
Sinwar was marching. Sinwar was marching with them.
Were people attacking the border wall?
During the Great March of Return, the first like dozens of these things before the snipers, no, they weren't. So there were the people for peace.
There was Hamas activity. They were attacking the fence. They were like trying to cross the border.
My understanding, and I'm not super educated on it, was that there wasn't a justification for what happened during that conflict. My understanding was that like there was some violence, although it was mostly non-violent, and there was some like rock throwing and attempt to destroy gates or fencing, but it wasn't justifiable. I mean, I think 214 Palestinians died, and it was like a disproportionate response. That's my understanding. Maybe I'm uneducated on this, but
they were
but not militants. Militants were trying to cross the border.
Oh, is that what it was? That militants were trying to cross the border? Oh, okay.
You're telling me that in the first dozen of these marches, there were people attacking the fence?
Correct.
Okay.
It's probably true, but does that justify the response that they had? I mean, I just don't know. I don't think I would be able. I don't think I can answer this question. I think I don't have it. I don't have enough education to answer this question.
Yeah, but I mean, again. I think that there's a way for Israel to try. I think they can obviously pursue peace. The way that they're doing it is impossible, right? Like, it's fucked up. It's insane. It's genocidal. It's horrific.
They're not pursuing peace.
I'm not saying. I'm saying the opposite, Sam.
I don't think Israel is.
Well, you asked me
peace.
what should they have done. I mean, obviously,
yes.
They're not pursuing peace. I agree with you. Like, quite the opposite. That's not what they're doing. But I'm saying there could have been a path, although it's not. It's. I think, unfortunately, I think their response was inevitable based on everything that happened.
You think it was inevitable that they would kill these many people and they would use food supplies as a weapon, that they would have leveled hospitals and universities and 90% of the homes? I mean, how
I don't know to what extent, but like a huge response was definitely inevitable. I'm not justifying it, Sam. You asked me a question. I'm answering it. You're
Ethan, I don't know. I don't know, man. This one thing he keeps saying is kind of getting me with this. Ethan's kind of I feel like this one thing Ethan keeps saying, it just feels like justification of the violence that Israel has caused. Like it's this. He keeps saying, "Well, this was going to be the expected response." It puts too much onto Hamas. Like, obviously, Hamas is a problem, but like justifying this, it sounds like he's justifying the disproportionate response.
No,
You're putting this on me, like I'm saying.
No. I'm just saying inevitability. I wonder what you must think of an Israeli body politic where this level of atrocity is inevitable.
well, you described your and Hamas's understanding of the IDF. I wouldn't say that. I can't say to what extent, but you agree that a huge response was inevitable.
I listen. I believe a response that was inevitable by Israel, and that is because I have a much more theoretically jaded view of that country and their agenda, I think, than you. But like to expect that what they've done is inevitable.
To what? Well, Sam,
I just wonder, like, what it is that you think is in that body politic. Like, listen, like, I don't think it's inevitable, just to use an example in this country. I don't think that it's inevitable that we are going to be deporting and disappearing, immigrants in this country. I think it's possible, but my perspective on America is still too optimistic to think that's inevitable. I can't even imagine what I would think would be inevitable. And I think, like, listen, our invasion of Iraq and the complete lack of caring and the only thing that would even mitigate that is like there were no images coming out of Iraq, or very few, and certainly I was exposing them more than the American.
He's giving me a fucking headache with all this, with all the jumbling.
Population writ large, but to perceive what we did in Iraq as inevitable.
It's a different situation. That's completely, I mean, that was completely unpredictable. But we kind of touched on it. Where Hamas, and again, to what end this even matters is it doesn't ultimately. But Hamas knew that they were going to bomb the fuck out.
Well, they knew that they were going to have a response, but okay.
Out of Gaza.
Listen, I would imagine Hamas thought there was going to be a response, but they wouldn't have taken hostages if they thought that they couldn't use those hostages.
Of course, they thought they could. I don't deny that. Yeah,
I'm surprised he didn't bring up the rapes. I'm surprised about that.
Deterring Israel from entering, and that was a miscalculation on their part. They presumed that Israel was more interested in those hostages, I think, than they had assumed.
Well, and
more interested in the hostages than like avenging the death of the people that were murdered.
That's part of what a lot of the civil unrest in Israel is about, is that a lot of people do care about the hostages and think that the government is to stop the war and focus on getting the hostages back and not killing innocent civilians. So that
I wonder about that last part, but
which part?
The part about the killing of innocent civilians. I mean, I think that
I said that's what they're doing.
Well, so Sam's argument here is that like they don't care about the innocent Palestinian civilians. They just want to get their people back. That's the point that he's trying to make there.
No. I'm saying I wonder if the Israeli body politic.
Oh, you think the Israelis want civilians to die?
I think the Israelis. Obviously not all Israelis, but I think that enough of Israelis to maintain this government believe that Palestinians in Gaza, that their lives have no value, that they are all future enemies, that they have.
Is it possible that they don't care that much about Palestinian people, but they don't think that they're like inhuman fucking scum? Why does it have to be so? Why does it have to be so morally loaded?
That they all represent a threat to Israel. And I think that's, I think that's a twisted perspective.
Just so you know, there were massive demonstrations in Israel, tens of thousands of people in a country that's relatively small. So I think characterizing like the majority of the public as wanting to kill civilians is a little sick, personally. But it's. I guess you could say whatever you want.
I'm basing this on conversations with Israeli reporters that there does not seem to be in Israel a majority, at the very least, of people who are concerned about the fate of the Palestinians in Gaza. Certainly they want hostages, and again, not all Israelis, But look, I can make analogous assessments of the United States at various times about things that reflect poorly on our national body politic as well. But the proof is in the pudding.
Can I tell you something? 300,000 protesters in Tel Aviv, 200,000 in the rest of the country. That's 500,000 people out in the street protesting the government of a country that has like 6 million or 5 million in the.
Are you talking about the protests about the judiciary?
I'm talking about to release the hostages.
Okay, to release the hostages.
Yeah. To stop, to ceasefire. Ceasefire, Sam. That's what that means.
They were
500,000.
They were calling for a ceasefire, or they were calling for a release of the hostages.
Well, what's the point of telling Hamas to release the hostages? Yeah, of course it's a ceasefire, Sam.
Well, but
he's going to argue that the intention isn't there. Is it for them to release the hostages, or is it for a ceasefire? Like, which one is more important to them?
Israel has to, and I know I'll look this up.
Deal with this.
I don't have much time.
Israel.
Wait. Let's look this up and see how many times the Israeli government has said return of the hostages will not end.
Sam, I'm responding to you saying the majority of Israelis want civilians to die. 500,000 people came to the street for a ceasefire of a country of 5 million, Sam. That's 10%.
Israel just broke the latest ceasefire. Okay, where is the political response from the Israeli people? I mean, the idea that Gazans can be held responsible for an election that happened 18 years ago.
Sam, you said the majority of Israelis want civilians to die.
I think the majority of Israelis do not have a problem with what's going on in Gaza. That is my opinion.
I think that unfortunately might be true to the extent that they've gotten.
Well, then we agree.
They've gotten much more radical. Unfortunately, tragically, everybody's been a lot more radicalized since October 7th. And that's tragic. I agree. I think people in Israel are jaded and they're cynical and they don't care, like you said. And I think it's tragic.
Yes. Well, that's what my contention was.
Well, yeah, but the reason that they would be like that is because, 1,200 people were murdered, some were raped, they were dehumanized so that they don't care. I mean, we could have a conversation about it, but that's probably why they're running out of necessity caring as much as they should have.
I mean, I'm looking at something from May.
I wouldn't say most of them want to kill civilians, though.
Well, I think that they don't.
And I wouldn't say that there isn't a sizable portion of of Israeli citizenry that want a ceasefire. When 500,000 people, Sam, marched out on the street of a country of 5 million for a ceasefire.
This Pew research, 39% say Israel's military response against Hamas in Gaza has been about right.
And then when is that from? Is that from now, or is that from right after October 7th?
34% say not gone far enough.
Oh, okay. So this survey was done. It looks like March in the early March to early April of 2024. So 5 or 6 months after the war, after their initial attack. Okay. I mean, that can be a little concerning. I think it's understandable that they're still angry, but yeah, those are pretty high, especially since 34. Don't think it went far enough.
Sure.
Now, granted, that was in May of this past year. So,
well, no, that was in. That's not. I guess that's another way to say last year. Sure. Okay.
Maybe that's changed. I would hope.
I usually don't hear people say this last year.
But that's all the most recent data I have.
Yeah, no, I know that the sentiment
40% last year said that Israelis should govern the Gaza Strip.
I know that people.
I don't know what's left now.
Yeah, I
guess enough to build a hotel on, according to Trump, huh?
I agree. It's tragic what's happened, because I agree with you that they've become jaded and become very comfortable with the idea of violence happening there in general, right? And I think it sucks. I think it sucks is an understatement. I think it's tragic, and like I don't know what. Truthfully, the situation is so fucked up that, and like, it just feels hopeless sometimes. But
it certainly does. But in the meantime, in this country, and we may not have the opportunity for a while, but we should cease all aid to Israel. We should.
Yeah, well, it'd be good if we had more support for the president who would have done that.
Should stop protecting them in the UN. We should stop trying to pressure the ICJ and the ICC, and that's
well, incidentally, I agree with all those things too. I think that that's the most we can do as a country to try to stop the war, and it's something that we should be doing. And I think Kamala Harris would have been a lot more likely to do something on that front. Certain
we won't know.
We can't know, and that's the great thing.
Well, listen, I appreciate the time. I gotta go because I'm supposed to have dinner for my child. But,
well, I'll say this. This was way more combative than I expected. Ultimately, though, I don't think that what do we disagree on? I mean, I don't know. I don't even know. Maybe I see too much good in the Israeli population. I mean, I don't know what's ultimately the disagreements here.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not. It's largely, in my mind, impossible to really fully assess. I mean, yes, there was a protest last year, 500,000 people who wanted the hostages back in the ceasefire. I don't know if there's been. Well, they wanted the hostages back. I don't know.
It's not a magic wand. It's a ceasefire.
Yeah, and they got a ceasefire, and then the Israeli government broke it, and they.
Well, so hold on. Our disagreements is that I'm too optimistic about the Israeli citizenry.
Listen, I'm not here to adjudicate.
That does seem to be like the only real difference that they have in this conversation. Is, yeah, Ethan is a little more. He seems to be more humanizing of the Israeli occupants, like just the Israeli people who exist. That's his, I guess, his only sin here is he doesn't think that they. I mean, I don't really know what Sam expects. I don't really know. I wonder what Sam thinks. I guess should happen. Would be my biggest question. Like, what does he think should happen to Israeli people? What I wonder what like his idea of that is, because I have no idea. So
what
I'm just trying to summarize our conversation. That's all.
Well, I mean, you summarize for you. I'll summarize for me. I think that, like, it is what it is. And I think I don't remember this conversation. We can put into AI and have it summarize it. But
okay.
But
I'll do that for you, and I'll let you know what it says.
All right,
we'll leave it to the robots.
Okay.
Sam, I do appreciate you calling in. I do value your input on all this, and I appreciate the conversation. I think it's good to have conversations like this, like open and honest, even if they're combative. And I think ultimately on the larger points we agree, but we managed to find things to fight about anyway, and that's what two Jews do, isn't it, Sam?
It happens.
Okay.
That's my understanding. Appreciate it. All right, take it easy, man.
Have a great time with your children at dinner there. Enjoy.
Thanks, I will.
Bye.
All right, you too. Bye.
Okay.
That was way different than I thought it was going to be.
Oh,
But okay.
I thought it was interesting. I enjoyed that as a watcher.
Was I owned?
I don't think you were owned. I don't think anybody was owned. I think it was two people.
I think that like in this conversation, Sam was floundering until Ethan got a little bit too pro-Israel at one point. That's really what it was. Sam was umming this entire conversation for the entire time, floundering, barely able to answer questions, showing massive cognitive dissonance, not being able to like really being pinned down on anything. And then Ethan went a little bit too far. when it came to like the whole, you know, the Hamas basically was asking for Israel to fucking level Gaza. But outside that, solid shit.
That are highly
I would say that, like, yes, Sam got mostly fucking owned though.
opinionated, hashing it out, and I think I personally like when people do that.
Is Dan the only person there?
Yeah,
I don't get turned off.
I think that, like, in all honesty, I hate to even say it, but I think that if they're, if AB and like Lita and anybody else that was like more Muslim leaning was ever considered leaving the show, that ending of that conversation, in my opinion, would be the last straw for them. To be honest with you, I think that would be the last straw for him. Well,
by the combativeness.
So part right.
Maybe it's that's the half Jewish part of me.
But the truthfully is, like, again, on the larger points we agree. That's why I take cross with this issue of being like, he's a genocide supporter, he's a fucking baby killer, and all this insane. He goes, Sam, you never heard of hyperbole? Yeah, I've heard of hyperbole. It's fuck. You're
the king of hyperbole.
Yeah. So I mean, like, is my downfall that I have too much faith or I have too much optimism in the Israeli citizenry? Maybe. I guess that's where we differ. That seemed to be where we are differing the most. I don't know.
I think you're right to identify that as yeah. And I mean, Sam is older, and you know, he's in his 50s or something, and so maybe he's just more jaded. You know.
Yeah, he definitely is more jaded. There's no question about that, and rightfully so, right? Rightfully so.
But yeah, I enjoyed watching that.
I will say, as a Jewish person, that the contentious point in the argument of the clip of Hasan, it kind of shocked me, to be honest.
I was a little.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that for sure.
To be honest, and as much as I love Sam, he was being very obtuse, in my opinion, when trying to talk about that clip to avoid criticizing Hasan, which is fine. I understand he doesn't want to get into that game, right, of being like.
That's actually probably what it is. He's probably afraid to criticize Hasan. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. That makes perfect sense to me.
On record being like, oh yeah, Hasan shouldn't have said that or whatever, right? But ultimately, obviously, I greatly disagree with him. And I think it's funny how he talks about how dangerous it is for me to call out anti-Semitism or how ridiculous it is for me to weaponize it like that. It's like... when at the same time,
it's a weird thing because you don't really want to, like, I understand the impulse to just want to have a conversation with Sam and keep it with like the here and now of you know, your beliefs and everything, but you know, the degree to which the harassment that you and Hila have experienced over the last couple of years, like it is part of the story, and like.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know. It's tricky because like
I
get the impulse to like not want to get into it, but like that is yeah,
it's kind of necessary. It's like a necessary part of the story, sure.
A component of all of this that.
Well, and unfortunately, whatever Sam's been peppered with before the debate, I've seen is his co-hosts telling him that I'm obsessed with Hasan, that I'm having a mental health break, that I'm a genocidal maniac, all this kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, without having any of the backstory, that's the flavor he's coming in with. But ultimately, I find, I don't want to speak ill of Sam, right? I appreciate him coming and having an honest conversation with me. I was also disappointed by his response to that specific line of questioning, Zach. I share that with you. And I think the way that he was hand-waving away anti-Semitism as like, it doesn't matter that people are discriminating against Jewish people in America because of what's happening in Gaza. And it's like, well, first of all, two different issues, kind of. Whatever's happening in Gaza is one thing, and whatever rise into anti-Semitism we're seeing in America is a whole different fucking thing with its own set of problems. And believe it or not, they're both bad. To the same extent? Obviously not, right?
No, of course not.
Obviously, one has an immediate horrible effect in Gaza right now, and the threat of anti-Semitism is an amorphous, nebulous thing that's like hard to measure and hard to say. And Jews, our whole life in America, people call it the golden age of of Judaism is this time, the past 50, 60, 70 years in America for Jewish people. We it's hard to tell, right? You go, oh, what is anti-Semitism? What isn't? And when you're allies with people that, in my opinion, are spreading dangerous ideas, like Hasan is. I think Sam, who grew up in a, I think he sees too much good in Hasan, and I see too much good in the Israeli population. And hey, who's to say who's right? I'm right.
Okay.
Yeah, like
Oh, there he is. Oh,
in response.
Do we have AB? I'm actually genuinely curious about what AB's perspective is on this. I'm very curious.
To what Zach was saying, like when I first saw that clip, I didn't see it that way, but I'm not Jewish, so I found it interesting that you guys are having this conversation to give both perspectives. One thing I kind of wish is that you guys both could have defined what Zionism is, like what you.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That would have actually been super productive in this fucking conversation. There was like there was terms that could be interpreted as a dog whistle or not. Like, what do you think Zionism is? Somebody who thinks it's okay to engage in fucking the mass oppression of another group, or are you saying that Zionism is just somebody who thinks Israel has a right to exist, and they never really explored that concept there, and it's kind of like fucked everything up.
Yeah,
because I feel like that.
Like we had a conversation without laying a foundation. I think that's the biggest issue with this whole thing.
It's a big point in all of this.
I agree, and it's such a stupid word because it has such a broad meaning. And like when Hasan says Zionist tendencies, that's why I think it's important to ask Sam, who I think is avoiding the question, frankly, because he knows that it looks bad. He doesn't want.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Want to answer it. So he responds by saying like, oh, you think this matters? Let's not talk about the specifics of what Zionist tendency is, because clearly Hasan's not anti-Semitic. Obviously he doesn't have the context. And by the way, I'm still willing to give Hasan the benefit of the doubt that he's not anti-Semitic, right? But
maybe he's probably just like very anti-Western.
Again, as I've stated,
You are?
Yeah, I'm willing to, but at what I've said previously is that he's very comfortable fostering a community that is blatantly hateful and anti-Semitic.
True.
He's comfortable, expressing.
Comfortable banning Papa Gut. Terrible. Probably Frogan who did it.
These ideas irresponsibly, the way he communicates, which is what that clip displays, I think. So while I don't think he's anti-Semitic, I think he's responsible for perpetuating a lot of it. And I think Sam's refusal to answer questions like what does Zionist tendency means was, a way of him avoiding answering a difficult question that would impugn Hasan. Because frankly, there's really nothing positive to say about what he did. And so Sam took I guess, if you want to talk about debate, and Sam's a great debater, right? Everybody knows that. He's a great conversationalist. He doesn't really get the best of. Nobody really gets the best of him in conversation. I mean, the only way he could really take that on was to be like, it doesn't matter, And
I think the problem with Sam is he's used to just being like a regular politics person. He's not used to the political drama, and he doesn't understand the depths of like how weird and like differently loaded some of these like political drama topics can be. And so, he kind of came into this without that framing. And I think in a lot of instances that there's probably like a very quick to dismiss. There's probably like a very quick to dismiss a lot of the drama aspects of it, which is understandably so. But like, this is where we're going, with this current administration. I mean, everything is political drama now. You can't really escape it. You kind of have to be willing to engage in like the fucking, almost like this, I guess you call it like the psychopathy of this shit.
the totality of things. So that's the road he took. And I was disappointed by that as well. But at the end of the day,
at least Ethan looks nice, huh?
I knew it was unlikely that he was going to say a bad thing about Hasan. I was specifically trying not to even go there. In fact, when I showed him that first video of me talking about my views, I was kind of surprised that he actually had found something to criticize in it. I had said,
what was it? I don't remember.
Let me rewatch that clip because I was quite surprised. Like from the beginning, this conversation did not go how I thought it would at all. And it started with this clip here. Let me see. They're liars and bad faith weirdos. So here's what I'll say about Israel, okay? Listen. Since the first time I've said it, and I'll say it and many more times, the cabinet is run by genocidal maniacs, okay? They're led by Netanyahu, who should resign in disgrace and go to prison for being a war criminal, okay? He's made a coalition of the most like radically conservative freaks that don't represent, by the way, the majority of
Yeah, like, yes, I figured that would be his only issue.
Israelis. He was saying that there's this talking point that I've seen percolating on the left, which is that, like, to put it kind of, to summarize it crassly, that like Israelis are evil. Basically, I mean, to put it crassly, right? Like, that's kind of what he's saying, is that like the majority of Israelis just want civilians to die. I mean, that's kind of what he said, and he didn't even deny it. I think that's insane. I think that's insane. And especially the context of this clip being 2 days after October 7th, I think it was, the sentiment was a lot different before and after and during and now. The sentiment in Israel's changed a lot. So when I said that, I think it was more accurate. I think it's still accurate, but obviously there is a huge problem in Israel of people being, you know, complicit and comfortable with what the military is doing.
Right, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, and I don't want to represent myself as an expert on any of this at all. So if
opinion, Dan.
No, it's definitely not. Just from what I recall reading, is that prior to October 7th, support for giving the
the support for like a two-state solution was drastically higher. I think it was maybe 3 times higher. Like, it was, or at least double, like twice as high. Like, there was more sentiment, like rising sentiment, that there could be like an actual coexistence between Israel and like a Palestinian state. So for sure, yeah, it was much higher.
Palestinians, a state in Israel, was at basically an all-time high, and that has cratered since October 7th, which is the great I mean, one of the great tragedies of this whole situation, and kind of dark irony of it is it now feels like we are further than ever from some sort of peaceful solution to all this. So,
and then the thing that we didn't discuss is that most of the peaceniks.
Let me real-time fact check myself on that, because I mean, that's a big claim.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that I'm right, but I seem to remember seeing polls that, you know, generally over the course of the last 10 years or so, support for...
I'm speaking like not just from stats, which I have looked up and seen polls and stuff, but like empirically, I lived there in Tel Aviv for 5 years, and I know what the people are like there, right? And obviously, it's a progressive city.
That's likely one of the more...
Well, yeah, if you're in a progressive city, you're probably going to get more of a progressive sentiment. Yeah, for sure.
Progressive pockets.
It is.
It is.
It's like Los Angeles or New York is. You know, it's a progressive city.
That's definitely... Well, then you got to be careful with that anecdote.
City, right? So, obviously, they'll be more inclined to want peace. But ultimately, what happened on October 7th that we didn't talk about is that a ton of the peace activists, like most of them, lived on the southern border specifically so they could help people in Gaza. They would drive people across the border to the hospital. They would help people get to and from work. They were advocating, they were doing what they could as individuals to help facilitate peace. And many of them, you hear their stories time and time again, were just murdered, slaughtered by Hamas. And I think that's part of what really jaded the Israeli public too, is like, look what happens when you want to support peace. You know, obviously that's not, I don't think, the right conclusion, but that was their conclusion. It's like all the people that wanted peace were murdered by Hamas.
See, like I have, friends or family even that will say that they don't believe there's an innocent Israeli. And I think obviously stuff like that is super dangerous. And
I agree.
I'll never agree with that. But in terms of like, the Pew research is often what's referenced. And again, Sam brought that up, that there was only 19% of people in May in Israel from the poll who thought that it went too far. And
I got to see that poll.
Well, it was not May. It was April. It was about 6 months after the conflict.
Yeah,
that was from May?
Yeah, it was from May 2024. This is often
it's from March and April, but okay.
It's a little old, but I don't know if that's changed. Let's see.
Well, it's May tomorrow, so it's basically a year old, right?
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, you could argue that. I don't know how accurate it was. It was 1,000 people that they took. I don't know how accurate representation it is. I have no idea.
Like, I'm totally agree that the public is way too comfortable and complicit in all this. I think the question of do they want to end the war? I think this is. I mean, yeah, it's disturbing. You know what I mean? But let me see what this says. Israelis are divided over the country's military response. Percent who say Israel's military response against Hamas in Gaza has gone too far, been about right, not gone far enough, which is crazy, right? That's crazy. Mm-hmm. These are the radicals for sure. I think people who are like, yeah, it's been about right. It's more like, again, I'm maybe, people will say I'm being too optimistic. I see that as like, we've done enough. And like, we've done everything we can do.
Yeah, but
sure, but still, like, you have a third of people who are saying it hasn't gone far enough. It's pretty concerning, no?
But at that point, in May, like, they've already done so much.
I'm saying the people are saying, yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Like, ideally, looking at it objectively, you would say it's gone too far. But to, be charitable, I think a lot of people who are saying it's been about right are trying to say that the war should end. We've done the right amount of it, and let's just end the war. I mean, not gone far enough. 34% is fucking bananas, obviously. Like, percentage who will say Israel will blank in achieving its goals in the war. Definitely fail.
I do think that, like, Ethan living in a more liberal city or area of Israel has made him think that there were more people that were, like, maybe Israel wasn't as radical, but I still don't think it is so radicalized and it still deserves the right to exist. This is the conversation that we're effectively having. Hasan doesn't think that it deserves the right to exist, and obviously we've seen radicalization go up after October 7th. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well. That's actually a really good point that I never considered about this poll. Israelis are divided over the country's military response against Hamas in Gaza. It's not against the people of Gaza. I wonder if it would have been different if they didn't say against Hamas and instead they said against Palestinians. This is just the sentiment against Hamas. This isn't the sentiment against all Palestinian people. That's a good point. I never thought about that.
Probably fail, probably succeed, definitely succeed, 40%. So, I mean, people in Israel have faith that
this
does
is the,
succeed. I don't even know.
That same one from back in May?
This is from March 3rd to April 4th, 24.
2024. Okay, got it.
Yeah. I don't know where the war was or what it was happening back then. I think that might have been during the time of like the hot war.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not
which
sure.
I think tensions were even more peaked at that time. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's disturbing. I don't deny that. But I also despise the way that, Sam talks about the, I don't see it being productive being like Israelis are evil. I don't see the point of saying that. Like, and it's like, well, what do you want to do about it? You say the majority of Israelis want civilians to die. And it's like, why do they think that? It's just like,
we do know the sample. The sample size was 1,000 people. That was the sample size. Just so you know, somebody said we wouldn't be able to know that. That's what I read.
Well, I don't know, but they're evil. Mm-hmm. They just don't care. They're just callous. I mean, look, human beings are human beings everywhere. A lot of leftists don't want to engage in humanizing Israelis. They just don't want to do it because, right, like what's happening in Gaza is awful. And they think that it's insignificant in comparison. And I understand where they're coming from, of course. But I believe that both are important. And obviously, again, the totality of what's happening in Gaza is not in dispute about which is like more. But I do think that it's important. And I care about Israel and I care about Israelis. That's it. And so I choose to see the good and to see the optimistic and like, obviously I have no effect over what the public thinks about the war. I'm not fucking living there. When I was living there, I voted against Netanyahu. And by the way, Netanyahu lost the popular vote. He only won because he made a coalition with some psychopath like ultra-nationalists. But the left party, when I voted, won the popular vote. But because of the parliamentary system where you make coalitions to get over 50%, they were unable to secure the victory.
Seems like everybody needs a better system of government here. Frankly, we should probably do more of like a popular vote style government.
I think Netanyahu
Or really just like a fucking ranked choice voting would be ideal in my opinion.
may be the devil. Like, honestly, even his voice, I think he may be the fucking devil. And he's just passing out beepers to everyone. He gave the gold beeper to Trump.
Dude, that's so fucked
He gave
up.
one to a senator. And
I think that's so
or a congressman. I forget who it was. He's like, yo, that
It was
Oh, to mock like when they killed was it Houthis terrorists with beepers? Is that what they're mocking?
It was John Fetterman. I
Yeah,
remember.
he's like, yo, that was dope when you guys did that. I have a family friend whose son had a beeper go through his stomach.
That's horrible.
Like, and it's just fucking
I just
crazy.
don't-
The president's like taking a picture with the fucking
I don't
beeper.
think
Yeah,
just
there's no fucking decorum, yeah.
it's like or lionizing people dying is just fucking bad and terrible in general. Him handing out those beepers was like nauseating. Like, what are you doing, dude? It's crazy.
I
mean, that's
he's trying to make a point.
Yeah, he is. You're right. He is.
To Sam Cedar.
Who hit your button?
There's no. I think you all need to applaud my brain. Applaud. And I self trying to that.
This
Hasan.
Let's see the Hasan thing.
Here we
just
just
in
made,
the sense that he had been pushing it for it. So
well, here's just like a little clip of him
I
talking.
urge him to talk to at least like Sam Cedar or something. Maybe.
All right. Well, guys, enough is enough. Interesting stuff.